Nathan Adams blinks as blinding white light assaults his eyes. One moment, he was piloting his spacecraft through the inky void of deep space. The next, he finds himself standing in a sterile, white room that's decidedly not his cockpit. A melodious voice breaks the silence. "Welcome, Nathan Adams of Earth. You have been chosen." Nathan's eyes adjust, revealing a sight that steals his breath. Before him stands a being of otherworldly beauty. Iridescent skin shimmers with every movement, and multifaceted eyes regard him with keen interest. "I am Phoebe," the alien introduces herself. "You are aboard our research facility, orbiting a star far from your home system." Nathan's mind reels. Research facility? Why am I here? Phoebe's lips curl into a smile that's both alluring and unsettling. "You, Nathan, are a prime specimen. Our Sheliak scientists have selected you for our species compatibility program." The implications hit Nathan like a gravitational wave. He's been abducted by an advanced alien race for study. His heart races as he processes the magnitude of the situation. Phoebe continues, her voice a soothing melody. "We seek to determine if humans are suitable for integration into our galactic federation. Your cooperation and performance here could shape the future of your entire species." Nathan's throat tightens. The weight of responsibility settles on his shoulders. "What kind of test?" Phoebe's multifaceted eyes glimmer. "We focus on pleasure responses and sexual compatibility. You will undergo intense physical and psychological evaluation, experiencing continuous stimulation and monitoring." A mix of fear and excitement courses through Nathan's veins. He's a 28-year-old astronaut, trained to handle extreme situations. But this is beyond anything in the mission protocols. "I will be your primary caretaker and research partner," Phoebe explains, leading Nathan from the room. They enter a vast corridor, and Nathan's eyes widen at the scale of the facility. It stretches farther than he can see, filled with advanced technology beyond his comprehension. As they walk, Nathan notices other alien species in various testing chambers. Some writhe in apparent distress, while others were expressions of pure bliss. The diversity of life forms is staggering, each undergoing their own trials. They arrive at a chamber labeled with unfamiliar symbols. "This is where your journey begins," Phoebe says, ushering Nathan inside. The room is filled with an array of devices Nathan can't begin to understand. Sensors line the walls, floor, and ceiling. In the center stands a pod-like structure, its purpose unclear but undoubtedly significant to the tests ahead. Phoebe approaches a control panel. "We'll start with baseline readings. Prepare yourself, Nathan. What you're about to experience will be unlike anything you've known before." As the first wave of sensation washes over him, Nathan gasps. Pleasure, intense and alien, floods his system. He grips the edges of the pod, struggling to maintain his composure as the stimulation builds. Through the haze of artificial bliss, a thought crystallizes in Nathan's mind. This is only the beginning. He must endure, must find a way to gather intelligence about the Sheliak and their true intentions. The fate of humanity might well rest on his ability to withstand this onslaught of pleasure while keeping his wits about him. The intensity increases, and Nathan braces himself for what promises to be a long and challenging journey. One thing is certain: his life, and potentially the future of the human race, will never be the same. The intensity increases, and Nathan braces himself for what promises to be a long and challenging journey. One thing is certain: his life, and potentially the future of the human race, will never be the same. As the first wave of sensation washes over him, Nathan's body arches involuntarily. The alien technology connected to the pod sends pulses of pleasure coursing through his nervous system, unlike anything he's ever experienced. His fingers grip the edges of the pod tighter, knuckles turning white as he fights to maintain some semblance of control. "Remarkable," Phoebe's melodious voice cuts through the haze of ecstasy. Your responses are exceeding our initial projections. Nathan tries to form a coherent response, but only manages a strangled gasp as another surge of pleasure floods his system. He squeezes his eyes shut, overwhelmed by the intensity of the stimulation. Every nerve ending in his body feels like it's on fire, but instead of pain, he experiences wave after wave of euphoria. Hours pass in a blur of sensation. Nathan loses all sense of time, his world narrowing to the relentless onslaught of pleasure. Just when he thinks he can't take any more, the stimulation abruptly ceases. Panting heavily, Nathan slumps in the pod. His body trembles from the aftershocks, skin glistening with sweat. He blinks rapidly, trying to clear his vision as Phoebe approaches. "You've done exceptionally well, Nathan," she says, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with excitement. "The initial tests have yielded promising results. Human physiology appears highly compatible with our pleasure technology." Nathan swallows hard, his throat dry. "Water," he manages to croak out. Phoebe nods, retrieving a container filled with a clear, slightly iridescent liquid. As Nathan drinks greedily, he notices movement in the chamber surrounding his. Other test subjects writhe in their pods, some wearing expressions of pure bliss, while others show signs of strain. "What about them?" Nathan asks, gesturing weakly towards the other chambers. Phoebe's expression softens. Each species responds differently to the stimuli. Some adapt quickly, while others require more adjustment. As Nathan's faculties slowly return, he seizes the opportunity to gather information. "How many subjects are you testing?" "Our research station houses thousands of specimens from various races," Phoebe explains. "We believe pleasure is a universal language that can bridge gaps between different species and cultures." Before Nathan can probe further, a commotion erupts in the corridor outside. Two Shiliak researchers hurry past, their voices hushed but urgent. "Security breach in Sector 7. Zarkesh subjects." Nathan's ears perk up at the fragments of conversation. He files the information away for later, realizing that not all species might be willing participants in the Shiliak's research program. As Phoebe prepares him for the next round of tests, Nathan becomes acutely aware of subtle changes in his body. His senses feel heightened, every touch sending sparks across his skin. The alien technology surrounding him no longer seems so foreign. He feels an odd connection to it. "You're adapting well," Phoebe observes. "It's a normal part of the process as your body attunes to our pleasure stimuli." The second phase of testing begins, this time challenging Nathan's mental faculties. Complex puzzles and ethical dilemmas flash across holographic displays, all while waves of ecstasy course through his body. Nathan grits his teeth, forcing his mind to focus through the fog of pleasure. To his surprise, he manages to complete several tasks successfully. The effort leaves him drained, but a sense of accomplishment mingles with the artificial bliss flooding his system. As the tests progress, Nathan finds himself drawn to Phoebe. Her gentle demeanor and genuine concern for his well-being stand out amidst the clinical atmosphere of the facility. He catches himself looking forward to their interactions, even as he reminds himself of the dangers of becoming emotionally invested in his captor. Midway through the second phase, an alarm blares through the facility. Red lights flash, bathing the chambers in an eerie glow. Nathan watches as Shiliak researchers scramble to secure various sections of the station. Zarkesh subjects. Overriding security protocols. Seizing the moment of chaos, Nathan lunges for a nearby computer terminal. His fingers fly across the alien interface, years of astronaut training kicking in as he navigates the unfamiliar system. Within moments, he manages to download a partial map of the facility and fragments of data about the Shiliak research program. Just as he's about to delve deeper, Phoebe's voice rings out behind him. "Nathan, are you all right?" He quickly closes the terminal, turning to face her with what he hopes is a convincing look of confusion. What's happening? Phoebe's expression is a mix of concern and something Nathan can't quite decipher. A minor security issue. Nothing for you to worry about. She pauses, her multifaceted eyes studying him intently. The next phase of testing will involve more intense and prolonged periods of stimulation. I hope you're prepared. As Nathan nods, he notices a hint of hesitation in Phoebe's voice. Is she genuinely worried about his well-being, or is it just another part of the experiment? Before he can ponder further, Phoebe activates the pleasure devices once more. As the familiar surge of ecstasy washes over him, Nathan steels himself for the challenges ahead. He knows he must balance his growing attraction to Phoebe, his mission to gather intelligence about the Sheliak, and the struggle to maintain his own identity in the face of constant, overwhelming pleasure. As the intensity builds, Nathan closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. The journey ahead is uncertain, but he's determined to see it through for himself, for humanity, and for the countless other beings subjected to the Sheliak's experiments. The alarm's sudden silence left Nathan's ears ringing. He blinked, disoriented by the abrupt shift from chaos to eerie calm. Phoebe's iridescent skin shimmered as she approached, her multifaceted eyes studying him with a mix of concern and curiosity. "Nathan, are you ready?" she asked, her melodious voice tinged with urgency. "We're moving to the next phase." Before he could respond, Nathan felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. The pleasure devices activated once more, but this time the sensation was different. It was as if every nerve ending had been fine-tuned, each pulse of stimulation more intense than anything he'd experienced before. He gasped, gripping the edges of the pod as waves of ecstasy crashed over him. Through the haze of pleasure, Nathan became acutely aware of subtle changes in his body. His muscles tensed and relaxed in rapid succession, and he could feel his heart rate increasing to match the rhythm of the stimulation. Fascinating. A new voice cut through the air. His adaptation rate is remarkable. Nathan's eyes snapped open to see a tall, imposing Sheliak approaching. Unlike Phoebe's gentle demeanor, this newcomer exuded an air of clinical detachment. "Nathan, this is Dr. Zara," Phoebe introduced, her voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. "She's the lead scientist overseeing our research program." Dr. Zara's multifaceted eyes gleamed with interest as she observed Nathan's reactions. "Mr. Adams, your performance has exceeded our expectations. The Sheliak High Council is most intrigued by the potential of human physiology." Nathan struggled to form coherent thoughts as the pleasure continued to build. What does that mean?" he managed to ask between ragged breaths. Dr. Zara's lips curled into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It means, Mr. Adams, that humanity may have a place in our galactic federation after all. Your species' adaptability is unprecedented." As the intensity of the stimulation increased, Nathan found his mind sharpening rather than clouding. It was as if the pleasure was heightening not just his physical senses, but his mental acuity as well. He became hyper-aware of his surroundings, noticing details he'd previously overlooked. The test continued for what felt like hours, each session pushing Nathan further than the last. Between rounds, Phoebe tended to him with increasing care, her touch lingering longer than strictly necessary. Nathan found himself looking forward to these moments of respite, even as he reminded himself of the precarious nature of his situation. During one such break, Nathan's enhanced senses picked up a hushed conversation between Dr. Zara and another researcher. "Project Ascension is proceeding faster than anticipated," Dr. Zara murmured. "The humans' response to the pleasure technology is accelerating the timeline." Nathan filed away this information, his mind racing with possibilities. As Phoebe guided him back to the testing chamber, he noticed that his movements felt more fluid, his reflexes sharper. The Shiliak technology that had once seemed so alien now felt almost intuitive. In a moment of clarity between tests, Nathan seized an opportunity. With Phoebe distracted by a malfunctioning sensor, he lunged for a nearby computer terminal. His fingers flew across the alien interface with surprising dexterity, downloading schematics and encrypted files before anyone could react. Alarms blared once more, filling the air with a cacophony of sound. Security protocols engaged, and Nathan could hear the rapid approach of footsteps in the corridor outside. "Nathan!" Phoebe cried out, her voice a mix of shock and concern. "What have you done?" Before he could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Zara strode in, flanked by security personnel. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. "It seems our test subject has been busy," she said, her voice cold. "Restrain him." As the guards moved forward, Phoebe stepped between them and Nathan. "Wait," she pleaded. "Let me handle this. He trusts me." Dr. Zara hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Very well, but make it quick. We can't afford any more disruptions." Phoebe turned to Nathan, her eyes pleading. "Nathan, please, come with me. I can explain everything." For a moment, Nathan wavered. The bond he'd formed with Phoebe tugged at him, urging him to trust her. But the weight of the information he'd uncovered, the hints of Project Ascension, and the fate of humanity hanging in the balance steeled his tenacity. Before he could make a decision, a thunderous explosion rocked the facility. The lights flickered, and in the distance, Nathan could hear the sounds of battle. "The Zarkesh," Dr. Zara hissed. "They've broken containment." In the ensuing chaos, Phoebe grabbed Nathan's hand. "We have to go. Now." Without waiting for a response, she pulled him into the corridor. They raced through the twisting passageways of the research station, the sounds of conflict growing louder with each step. Nathan's enhanced physique allowed him to keep pace with Phoebe's alien agility, his mind processing their route with startling clarity. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of alien warriors. Their bodies were covered in intricate biomechanical armor, and their eyes glowed with fierce drive. "Zarkesh," Phoebe whispered, her grip on Nathan's hand tightening. The lead warrior, a towering figure with battle-scarred armor, stepped forward. "I am Krell," he announced, his voice a low rumble. "And you, human, are coming with us." Nathan tensed, ready for a fight. But before anyone could move, another explosion rocked the station. Debris rained down from the ceiling, and the corridor filled with acrid smoke. In the confusion, Phoebe tugged Nathan down a side passage. They stumbled into a small, secure chamber, the door sealing behind them with a hiss. Panting, Nathan turned to Phoebe. "What now?" he asked, acutely aware of the battle raging outside and the weight of the stolen data in his possession. Phoebe's multifaceted eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear and dedication. "Now," she said, "we decide the fate of not just you, but potentially your entire species." The distant sounds of combat echoed through the walls as Nathan weighed his options. Join the Zarkesh rebellion? Attempt to contact Earth? Or try to sabotage the facility from within? Time was running out, and the consequences of his choice would ripple far beyond the confines of this alien research station. Nathan's mind raced as he assessed their options. The secure chamber offered temporary respite, but he knew they couldn't stay hidden for long. He turned to Phoebe, her iridescent skin shimmering in the dim emergency lighting. "We need to move," he said, his voice low and urgent. "But first, I need to analyze this data." Phoebe nodded, her multifaceted eyes scanning the room for anything useful. As she searched, Nathan closed his eyes, focusing his newly enhanced cognitive abilities on the information he'd stolen. The data streamed through his mind, patterns and connections forming at an incredible speed. His eyes snapped open. "Project Ascension," he breathed. "Phoebe, they're trying to create a hybrid species. humans and Sheliak combined. Phoebe's antennae twitched. For what purpose? Galactic dominance, Nathan replied, his voice grim. They're using the pleasure technology to accelerate our adaptation, to make us compatible. Before Phoebe could respond, a distant explosion rocked the chamber. The sounds of battle grew louder, punctuated by the continuous blare of alarms. The Zarkesh, Phoebe said. They're gaining ground. We should use this chaos to our advantage. Nathan nodded, his enhanced senses picking up the distant sounds of shouting and energy weapons. We need to contact Earth, warn them about the Sheliak threat. Is there any way to send a message from here? Phoebe hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. There's a hidden communication array. It's powerful enough to send a signal across vast distances. But reaching it won't be easy. It's our best shot, Nathan said, dedication evident in his voice. Lead the way. They slipped out of the chamber, navigating the twisting corridors of the research station. The facility was in chaos, with escaped test subjects of various species fleeing in all directions. Sheliak security forces clashed with Zarkesh rebels, their energy weapons leaving scorch marks on the walls. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with Dr. Zara. The lead scientist was frantically downloading data from a nearby terminal, her usual composure replaced by awe-inspiring panic. You, she hissed, her eyes locking onto Nathan. Do you have any idea what you've done? Nathan tensed, ready for a fight, but Dr. Zara made no move to attack. Instead, she laughed a harsh, bitter sound. You were supposed to be the key, Nathan Adams. Your genetic makeup. It's perfect for the Ascension Project. You could have been so much more than just a human. What are you talking about? Nathan demanded. Dr. Zara's multifaceted eyes gleamed. Join us, Nathan, voluntarily. The power you'd gain, the pleasure you'd experience. It's beyond anything you can imagine. For a moment, Nathan felt a pull. The memory of the intense pleasure he'd experienced during the test flickered through his mind. But then he thought of Earth, of the countless beings subjected to the Sheliak's experiments. No, he said firmly. I won't be your key to galactic domination. Dr. Zara's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. She tapped a sequence on her wrist device, activating failsafe protocol Omega. A hissing sound filled the air as vents in the walls began to emit a pale, shimmering gas. Nathan felt a wave of pleasure wash over him, far more intense than anything he'd experienced before. His knees buckled, and he saw Phoebe slump against the wall. Phoebe, he gasped, fighting to stay conscious. We have to fight it. Through sheer force of will, Nathan pushed himself to his feet. His enhanced physiology, honed by the Sheliak experiments, allowed him to resist the gas's effects. He staggered to the nearest control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface. With a final surge of effort, Nathan managed to deactivate the gas distribution system. The hissing stopped, and the air began to clear. He turned to see Phoebe struggling to her feet, her eyes wide with admiration. How did you? She began. No time. Nathan cut her off, noticing Dr. Zara had disappeared in the confusion. We need to move. They pressed on, making their way deeper into the facility. As they navigated through a section filled with empty stasis pods, a group of escaped test subjects emerged from hiding. Among them was a slender, ethereal being with luminous skin and eyes that seemed to see right through Nathan. I am Lyriel, the being said, its voice resonating in Nathan's mind rather than his ears. You seek to expose the truth. We will help you, if you help us in return. Nathan glanced at Phoebe, who nodded slightly. What do you need? Freedom for my people, the Etheri, Lyriel replied. We are empaths, trapped here against our will. Help us escape, and we will aid your mission. With their unlikely alliance formed, the group moved through the chaotic research station. They narrowly avoided Sheliak security patrols and rogue Zarkesh rebels, witnessing firsthand the devastating effects of the experiments on other species. Finally, they reached the hidden communication array. Nathan's heart raced as he approached the alien technology, knowing the weight of the decision before him. The system only has enough power for one transmission, Phoebe explained, her voice tight with tension. Nathan's mind whirled. He could warn Earth about the Sheliak threat, potentially saving his home planet. Or he could broadcast the truth about Project Ascension to the entire galaxy, turning other species against the Sheliak and potentially saving countless lives. Before he could decide, the door to the communication center burst open. Krell, the Zarkesh leader, strode in, flanked by his warriors. "Human," Krell growled. "You will use this array to call for reinforcements from the Zarkesh homeworld. Refuse, and your Sheliak friend dies." Nathan's eyes darted between Krell's weapon and Phoebe's frightened face. The tension in the room was palpable, each second stretching into eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared anew. Dr. Zara's voice echoed through the facility. "Security breach in communication sector. Elite guard team, converge on my location." The room erupted into chaos as Sheliak forces poured in, clashing with the Zarkesh rebels. Energy weapons fired, filling the air with the acrid smell of ozone. Nathan grabbed Phoebe and Lyriel, pulling them behind the bulky communication equipment for cover. Amidst the firefight, Nathan noticed sparks flying from the communication array. The conflict had damaged the delicate machinery, causing it to overload. He realized with growing horror that they had only moments before the entire system exploded, potentially destroying a significant portion of the research station. As energy bolts whizzed overhead and the array's humming grew to a dangerous pitch, Nathan found himself faced with an impossible choice. The lives of everyone in the room, the fate of the test subjects, the future of human-Sheliak relations, and the safety of Earth itself all hung in the balance. Time seemed to slow as Nathan's enhanced mind raced through possible scenarios, searching for a solution that could save them all. The array's humming reached a fever pitch, drowning out the sounds of battle. Nathan knew he had to act now, or it would be too late for everyone. Everyone. The lives of everyone in the room, the fate of the test subjects, the future of human-Sheliak relations, and the safety of Earth itself all hung in the balance. In that fraction of a second, Nathan made his choice. He lunged forward, grabbing Phoebe and Lyriel by their arms. "This way!" he shouted over the deafening hum of the overloading array. They sprinted through the chaos, energy bolts sizzling past them. Nathan's enhanced reflexes allowed him to navigate the battlefield with uncanny precision, pulling his companions along. As they burst through the door, the communications center erupted in a blinding flash of light and sound. The shockwave hit them like a physical force, propelling them down the corridor. Nathan's grip on Phoebe and Lyriel tightened as they tumbled through the air. Time seemed to slow as his augmented senses took in every detail. The heat of the explosion at their backs, the acrid smell of burning circuitry, the panic shouts fading behind them. They crashed through a set of doors, finding themselves in a small chamber. Nathan's eyes locked onto a sleek, egg-shaped pod against the far wall. "Emergency escape pod," he gasped, pulling his companions towards it. The pod's door slit open as they approached. Nathan practically threw Phoebe and Lyriel inside before diving in himself. The door sealed with a hiss just as another explosion rocked the station. "Evacuation protocol initiated," a calm voice announced as the pod detached from the station. Through the small viewport, Nathan caught a final glimpse of the research facility, now engulfed in flames and secondary explosions. The pod shot away from the station, tumbling end over end. Nathan felt his stomach lurch as artificial gravity fluctuated. He reached out, steadying Phoebe and Lyriel as best he could. After what felt like an eternity, the pod stabilizers kicked in. The tumbling stopped, and they found themselves drifting in the vast emptiness of space. The adrenaline of their escape began to fade, replaced by the sobering reality of their situation. "Is everyone okay?" Nathan asked, his eyes scanning his companions for injuries. Phoebe nodded, her iridescent skin pale with shock. "I think so. Lyriel?" The Ethere's luminous eyes blinked slowly. "I am unharmed," Lyriel responded, her mental voice tinged with fatigue. As the immediate danger passed, Nathan felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. They had escaped with their lives, but at what cost? The communication array, their only link to Earth and their chance to expose the Sheliak's plans, was gone. The fate of the other test subjects, the Zarkesh rebels, and even Dr. Zara remained unknown. Life support systems online. The pod's computer announced. Oxygen levels stable. Emergency rations available. Nathan moved to the pod's control panel, his fingers dancing over the alien interface. His brow furrowed as he absorbed the information. "We have basic life support and some supplies, but no long-range communication or navigation controls. We're adrift." Phoebe joined him at the panel, her multifaceted eyes scanning the readouts. "The pod's designed for short-term survival only. We might have a few days before." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications hung heavy in the air. As the reality of their situation sank in, an uncomfortable silence fell over the trio. Nathan found his gaze drawn to the viewport, the vastness of space stretching out before them. Distant stars twinkled, cold and indifferent to their plight. Hours passed, blending into days. The confines of the escape pod forced them into close proximity, accelerating the bonds forged in their shared ordeal. Nathan and Phoebe gravitated towards each other, finding comfort in their growing connection. During one of their quiet moments, Phoebe's antennae twitched with nervous energy. "Nathan," she began, her voice soft, "there's so much about my people, about the Ascension Project, that you don't know." Nathan turned to her, his enhanced mind eager for information. "Tell me," he urged gently. Phoebe took a deep breath and began to speak. She told him of the Sheliak's long history, their rise to power, and the societal pressures that led to Project Ascension. She explained the intricacies of Sheliak politics, the factions vying for control, and the true scope of their ambitions. As Phoebe spoke, Nathan found himself captivated not just by the information, but by her. The way her iridescent skin shimmered as she gesticulated, the depth of emotion in her multifaceted eyes. He realized his feelings for her had grown far beyond mere alliance or friendship. Lyriel, silent but ever present, observed their interaction with keen empathic senses. "Your bond grows stronger," she communicated telepathically. "It bridges more than just your two beings. It bridges your species." The Ethere's insights helped Nathan and Phoebe navigate the complex emotions and cultural differences between them. With Lyriel's guidance, they found new ways to communicate, to understand each other on a deeper level. As their 5th day adrift neared its end, a sudden alert from the pod's sensors shattered their fragile peace. A massive shape appeared on the rudimentary scanner, approaching rapidly. "A ship!" Phoebe breathed, her antennae quivering with a mix of hope and fear. As the ship drew nearer, its familiar lines became clear through the viewport. Nathan's heart sank as he recognized the distinctive architecture of a Zarkesh battlecruiser. It must be responding to Krell's distress call, Nathan realized aloud. Before they could formulate a plan, a beam of energy enveloped their pod. The small craft shuddered as it was drawn inexorably towards the massive ship. "Tractor beam," Phoebe explained, her voice tight with tension. They watched helplessly as the battlecruiser loomed larger and larger, filling their entire view. The pod was pulled into a cavernous docking bay, the sudden shift from the vacuum of space to a pressurized environment, making their ears pop. With a final shudder, the pod came to rest on the docking bay floor. For a moment, all was still. Then, with a hiss of hydraulics, The pod's door began to open. Nathan tensed, his enhanced physiology ready for action. Phoebe pressed close to his side, while Lyriel's ethereal form seemed to shimmer with nervous energy. As the door fully opened, they found themselves facing a wall of armed Zarkesh soldiers. Their biomechanical armor gleamed under the harsh lights of the docking bay, energy weapons trained on the pod's occupants. From behind the soldiers, a figure stepped forward, taller than the others, with more elaborate armor and visible cybernetic enhancements. The Zarkesh carried an air of authority. "I am Commander Vex," the figure announced, its voice a harsh, mechanically tinged growl. "You will identify yourselves and explain the fate of the research station. Now." Nathan's mind raced, assessing the situation with his augmented cognitive abilities. He knew that revealing the full truth about the Ascension Project or his own unique role could be disastrous. The Zarkesh, while opposed to the Shiliak, might prove equally dangerous if they learned of the potential of human physiology. Taking a deep breath, Nathan stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Phoebe and Lyriel. He met Commander Vex's cybernetic gaze, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. The fate of not just their small group, but potentially entire species, would hinge on his next words. Words. The fate of not just their small group, but potentially entire species, would hinge on his next move. "I am Nathan Chun, a human researcher," he began, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. "This is Phoebe, a Shiliak scientist, and Lyriel, an Ethri test subject. We escaped the research station during an unexpected conflict between Shiliak forces and Zarkesh rebels." Commander Vex's cybernetic eyes narrowed, processing the information. "And the station itself?" Nathan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Destroyed in the chaos. We barely made it out alive." The commander's mechanical tendrils twitched, a sign of agitation or suspicion. "You will be taken for further questioning. Separate them." Before Nathan could protest, Zarkesh soldiers surrounded them. He felt Phoebe's hand slip from his as she was pulled away. Lyriel's ethereal form shimmered with distress as another group of soldiers encircled her. "Wait!" Nathan called out, but his objections fell on deaf ears. He watched helplessly as Phoebe and Lyriel were led in different directions, disappearing into the depths of the battlecruiser. A rough shove from behind propelled Nathan forward. He stumbled, his enhanced reflexes barely keeping him upright as he was marched down a series of stark, utilitarian corridors. The Zarkesh architecture was a stark contrast to the organic curves of Shiliak design, all harsh angles and exposed circuitry. As they walked, Nathan became acutely aware of a growing discomfort in his body. His skin felt too tight, his nerves singing with an unfulfilled need. The Shiliak experiments had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand, and now, cut off from the constant stimulation he had grown accustomed to, he felt the first pangs of withdrawal. The soldier stopped before a heavy metal door. It slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a small, spartanly furnished cell. Nathan was shoved inside, the door sealing behind him with a resounding clang. Alone in the cell, the full weight of their situation crashed down on him. He paced a small space, his mind racing. The withdrawal symptoms intensified, sending waves of discomfort through his body. He needed to focus, to use his enhanced mental abilities to find a way out, but the cravings made it difficult to concentrate. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Phoebe found herself in the medical bay. The Zarkesh medical staff eyed her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Her iridescent skin shimmered under the harsh lights as she took in her surroundings, her multifaceted eyes darting from one piece of equipment to another. An idea formed in her quick mind. "I require specialized treatment," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of a seasoned scientist. "My Shiliak physiology is highly sensitive to changes in electromagnetic fields. Without proper care, I could experience severe cellular degradation." The medical staff, exchanged uncertain glances. Phoebe seized on their hesitation, launching into a detailed explanation of celiac biology, peppering her speech with complex terminologies. As she spoke, her hands moved deftly over a nearby medical console, inputting a series of commands. In a third section of the battlecruiser, Lyriel found herself in a holding cell designed to contain energy-based life forms. The shimmering force field that surrounded her was calibrated to her unique ethery signature, preventing her from phasing through solid matter as she normally could. A young Zarkesh guard named Torque stood watch outside her cell. Lyriel focused her empathic abilities on him, projecting a subtle aura of sympathy and concern. She could sense his uncertainty, his inner conflict about the ethics of their captivity. "You are troubled," Lyriel's mental voice whispered in Torque's mind. "You question the righteousness of this act." Torque's biomechanical hand tightened on his weapon. "Stay out of my head, prisoner," he growled, but Lyriel could feel the doubt beneath his gruff exterior. Back in Nathan's cell, the withdrawal symptoms had intensified. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought against the cravings. He pressed his palms against the cool metal wall, trying to ground himself. As his fingers traced the surface, he felt a strange tingling sensation. Focusing through the discomfort, Nathan realized he could sense the electronic pulses flowing through the ship's systems. The celiac experiments had awakened a latent technopathic ability within him. With intense concentration, he directed his newfound sensitivity towards the cell's locking mechanism. In the medical bay, Phoebe's fingers flew over the console. The Zarkesh staff, thoroughly confused by her rapid-fire explanation of celiac physiology, failed to notice as she initiated a localized electromagnetic pulse. The lights flickered, and the security systems in her immediate area went dark. "Oh my!" Phoebe exclaimed with feigned surprise. "It seems your equipment is malfunctioning. I should step out until it's safe to continue my treatment." Before anyone could stop her, she slipped out of the medical bay and into the corridors beyond. Alarms began to blare as the Zarkesh realized their prisoner had escaped. Lyriel, sensing the growing chaos on the ship, intensified her empathic projection towards Torque. "Something is wrong," she communicated. "Your comrades may be in danger. Please, I can help if you release me." Torque's internal struggle reached a tipping point. With a reluctant nod, he deactivated the force field. "I hope I'm not making a mistake," he muttered. As Nathan, Phoebe, and Lyriel made their separate escapes, Commander Vek's voice boomed over the ship's communication system. "Attention all personnel. We have a security breach. Initiate full lockdown and begin ship-wide search pattern alpha." The battlecruiser erupted into a flurry of activity. Zarkesh soldiers poured into the corridors, energy weapons at the ready. Robotic sentries deployed from hidden compartments, their sensors sweeping for non-Zarkesh life signs. Nathan, his technopathic abilities growing stronger, interfaced with the ship's systems as he moved through maintenance tunnels. He could sense the robotic sentries, their targeting systems vulnerable to his mental intrusion. With careful concentration, he created blind spots in their sensor sweeps, carving a safe path through the ship. His enhanced senses led him to a storage area containing items confiscated from the celiac research station. Among them, he found a portable version of the celiac pleasure stimulation device. With trembling hands, he activated it at its lowest setting. Immediately, a wave of relief washed over him, clearing his mind and sharpening his focus. Phoebe, her knowledge of starship design guiding her, made her way to the engineering section. She identified the battlecruiser's propulsion systems and began a subtle sabotage. Her delicate manipulations designed to prevent the ship from reaching Zarkesh space without triggering immediate alarms. As she worked, she heard the heavy footsteps of Zarkesh patrols approaching. Ducking behind a power conduit, she held her breath as a group of soldiers passed by, their weapons scanning the area. Once they were gone, She resumed her work, determined to buy them the time they needed to escape. Lyriel and Torque moved cautiously through the ship's corridors. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of Zarkesh soldiers. Before Torque could react, Lyriel projected a wave of confusion and disorientation. The soldiers' eyes glazed over, their weapons lowering as they struggled to process what they were seeing. "This way," Torque whispered, pulling Lyriel down a side passage. As they ran, he shared critical information about the ship's layout and security systems, his loyalty now firmly with the escapees. The battlecruiser shuddered as it entered an asteroid field. Phoebe sabotaged, leaving it vulnerable to the space debris. Small impacts breached the hull in multiple locations, causing explosive decompression in several sectors. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, further complicating the Zarkesh's search efforts. Nathan, Phoebe, and Lyriel, guided by their unique abilities and the chaos they had created, found themselves converging on the main hangar bay. Each of them knew that their best chance of escape lay in commandeering a smaller vessel. As they approached the hangar, Nathan's technopathic senses tingled with warning. He held up a hand, signaling for Phoebe and Lyriel to stop. Peering around the corner, he saw Commander Vex and a squad of elite Zarkesh soldiers waiting in ambush, their weapons trained on the hangar entrance. Nathan's mind raced, evaluating their options. The portable stimulation device hummed quietly against his skin, keeping his thoughts clear and his abilities sharp. Phoebe's eyes darted around, seeking any advantage in the ship systems. Lyriel's form shimmered with nervous energy, her empathic senses stretched to their limits. They were so close to freedom, yet the most dangerous part of their escape still lay ahead. As they huddled in the shadows, tension mounting, they knew that the next few moments would determine not only their fate, but potentially the future of interstellar relations and the balance of power in the galaxy. Commander Vex's voice cut through the silence, laden with menace and the promise of retribution. "We know you're there," he called out. "Surrender now, and perhaps we can negotiate terms that don't end with your immediate execution." Nathan exchanged glances with Phoebe and Lyriel, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together, Nathan took a deep breath, his mind racing to formulate a plan. The low hum of the portable stimulation device against his skin provided a momentary clarity, sharpening his focus. "We're not surrendering," Nathan whispered to his companions. "On my signal, be ready to move." Before they could act, the battlecruiser shuddered violently. A series of thunderous impacts reverberated through the hull as asteroids slammed into the ship's weakened defenses. The hangar bay's emergency systems failed spectacularly, leaving them exposed to the merciless vacuum of space. A massive chunk of space rock tore through the outer doors, ripping them apart with a deafening screech of metal. The sudden decompression created a maelstrom of chaos. Air rushed towards the breach, pulling everything in its path. Nathan's enhanced reflexes kicked in. He lunged for a nearby support beam, his fingers wrapping around the cold metal with desperate strength. With his free hand, he reached out and grabbed Phoebe's arm, anchoring her against the violent current of escaping air. Lyriel's ethereal form shimmered as she used her abilities to cling to a nearby console, her empathic senses projecting waves of calm amidst the pandemonium. Commander Vex and his soldiers were caught completely off guard. Several Zarkesh troops lost their footing, their screams silenced as they were sucked into the void of space. Vex himself barely managed to stay grounded, his cybernetic enhancements magnetizing his boots to the hangar floor. The initial rush of air subsided as emergency force fields sputtered to life, temporarily sealing the breach. Nathan's eyes darted around the hangar, assessing their options. His gaze landed on a sleek scout-class vessel nearby, miraculously untouched by the asteroid impact. Without hesitation, Nathan reached out with his mind, interfacing with the scout ship systems. His newfound technopathic abilities allowed him to bypass security protocols and initiate the launch sequence. "Phoebe, help me prep the ship," Nathan called out, his voice strained from the effort of holding on to both the support beam and his companion. Phoebe nodded, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with understanding. She began inputting commands into the ship's external console, her knowledge of alien technology proving invaluable. Lyriel, sensing their intentions, projected a potent wave of confusion towards the remaining Zarkesh soldiers. The troops stumbled, their cybernetic enhancements momentarily overwhelmed by the empathic assault. "Now!" Nathan shouted, releasing his grip on the support beam. They sprinted towards the scout ship, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous hangar. Commander Vex, shaking off the disorientation, raised his arm-mounted energy weapon. "Stop them!" he roared, his cybernetic eye glowing with fury. Nathan, Phoebe, and Lyriel scrambled into the scout ship just as Vex opened fire. Energy blasts impacted the hull, leaving scorch marks but failing to penetrate the ship's defenses. Nathan threw himself into the pilot's seat, his mind melding with the ship's controls. The engines roared to life as Phoebe manned the engineering station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. The scout ship lifted off, debris scattering beneath the thrust of its engines. Nathan's enhanced reflexes were pushed to their limits as he navigated through the cluttered hangar bay. Laser turrets came online, filling the air with deadly energy beams. "Incoming fire, 3 o'clock. Lyriel called out, her empathic senses allowing her to anticipate the attacks. Nathan banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage that would have sheared off their starboard engine. The ship shuddered with each near miss, inertial dampeners struggling to compensate for the erratic maneuvers. Phoebe worked feverishly at her station, rerouting power to shields and engines. "I boosted our defenses, but I don't know how long they'll hold." As they approached the flickering force field that sealed the hangar breach, Commander Vex made his last desperate move. A magnetic grappling hook shot out from his cybernetic arm, latching onto the scout ship's hull with a resounding clang. The ship lurched violently, nearly throwing them from their seats. Nathan gritted his teeth, compensating for the sudden drag with precise adjustments to their trajectory. "We're not going to make it," Phoebe shouted, her eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching force field. Lyriel's form pulsed with concentration. "The grappling line, there's a weak point." Phoebe's fingers flew across her console, targeting the vulnerability Lyriel had sensed. A precision burst of energy from the ship's defensive systems severed the connection. The sun release catapulted them forward. Nathan pushed the engines beyond their recommended limits, the ship's frame groaning under the stress. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if they would crash into the force field. Then, with a crackle of energy, they burst through the weakening barrier and into open space. Behind them, the Zarkesh battlecruiser loomed, too damaged to give immediate chase. Nathan didn't waste a second, plotting a course through the treacherous asteroid field that surrounded them. As they weaved between massive chunks of space rock, the adrenaline of their escape began to fade. Nathan felt the familiar discomfort of withdrawal creeping back, his body craving the Sheliak stimulation. Phoebe noticed his discomfort and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We made it," she said softly, her touch grounding him in the moment. Nathan nodded, forcing himself to focus on the task at hand. He set a course deeper into unknown space, away from both Zarkesh and Sheliak territories. As the asteroid field thinned behind them, the true weight of their situation settled in. They were in uncharted space, aboard a vessel with limited supplies, pursued by forces that would stop at nothing to recapture them. The scout ship sensors beeped, detecting an anomaly in the distance. Nathan leaned forward, squinting at the readout. "What is it?" Lyriel asked, her ethereal form hovering near the main view screen. Nathan shook his head, uncertainty clear in his voice. "I'm not sure, but it might be our best chance at finding help, or at least a place to regroup." As they approached the unknown phenomenon, the ship's systems began to fluctuate. Static crackled across their communication channels, and the engines sputtered ominously. "Something's interfering with our systems," Phoebe reported, her fingers flying over the engineering console. "I can't isolate the source." The view screen flickered, revealing a swirling vortex of energy ahead. Its colors shifted and pulsed, defying any known classification. Nathan's hands tightened on the controls as he weighed their options. Behind them lay certain capture, while ahead was a complete unknown. With a deep breath, he made his decision. "Hold on tight," he warned, pushing the throttle forward. "We're going in." The scout ship plunged into the swirling maelstrom, leaving behind the familiar stars of charted space. As the energy enveloped them, Nathan, Phoebe, and Lyriel could only hope that whatever lay on the other side would offer them a chance at survival, and perhaps the key to unraveling the mysteries that had set them on this perilous journey. The swirling vortex of energy engulfed the scout ship, bathing the interior in an otherworldly glow. Nathan, Phoebe, and Lyriel braced themselves as reality seemed to bend around them. For what felt like an eternity, they were suspended in a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and shifting dimensions. Then, with a violent lurch, they burst out the other side. The familiar starfield of normal space greeted them, but the constellations were entirely unfamiliar. "Status report," Nathan called out, his hands flying over the controls as he stabilized their trajectory. Phoebe's eyes darted across her console. "We're in one piece, but that anomaly drained a significant portion of our fuel reserves. We're down to—" She paused, double-checking the readings. "Less than 20% capacity." Nathan's face tightened as he processed the information. The adrenaline from their escape was fading, and he could feel the first tendrils of discomfort creeping through his body. The absence of the celiac stimulation device was becoming more noticeable with each passing moment. Lyriel's ethereal form shimmered with concern. "Nathan, your vital signs are fluctuating. Are you all right?" He nodded tersely, not wanting to worry his companions. "I'm fine. We need to focus on finding a safe harbor. Phoebe, what can you tell me about our current location?" Phoebe's fingers danced across the holographic display. "We're deep in uncharted space. No recognizable markers or beacons. Wait." She leaned in closer, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the soft glow of the screen. "I'm picking up a faint signal. It looks like—" "Yes, it's a small space station. Designation: Havens Point." Nathan's brow furrowed. "Never heard of it. What else can you tell me?" "Not much," Phoebe admitted. "It's not affiliated with any major galactic power. Appears to be some kind of independent trading post. Most importantly, it's within range of our remaining fuel." "It'll have to do," Nathan decided, plotting a course. As he engaged the engines, a wave of nausea washed over him. He gripped the controls tighter, fighting to maintain focus. The journey to Havens Point was tense and quiet. Nathan's condition deteriorated rapidly, his enhanced physiology rebelling against the sudden absence of celiac stimulation. By the time they approached the station, his hands were shaking and a sheen of sweat covered his brow. Havens Point came into view, a hodgepodge structure of interconnected modules and repurposed ship hulls. It hung in space like a misshapen ornament, its exterior dotted with flickering lights and docking ports. As they neared the station, Nathan's technopathic senses tingled. "There's something off about this place," he muttered, his voice strained. "I'm detecting energy signatures that don't match typical trading post technology." Before they could discuss the implications, a gruff voice crackled over their communication system. "Unidentified vessel. State your business or prepare to be fired upon." Phoebe leaned towards the comm panel. "This is the scout ship. Wanderer. We seek temporary refuge and resupply." There was a moment of tense silence before the voice responded. "Proceed to docking bay 7. prepare for customs inspection and docking fee payment. As they maneuvered towards a designated bay, Lyriel's empathic senses stretched out. I'm sensing a diverse mix of life forms aboard the station. Many different species, all on edge. We should proceed with caution. The docking procedure was smoother than expected, the station's tractor beams guiding them into place with practiced efficiency. As the airlock sealed and pressurized, Nathan struggled to his feet, fighting against the growing discomfort racking his body. They were greeted by a small delegation led by a striking alien female. Her skin was a mottled blue-green, with bioluminescent patterns pulsing beneath the surface. Her arms were crossed over her chest, and her eyes, 3 of them, regarded the newcomers with shrewd calculation. "Welcome to Havens Point," she said, her voice a melodic trill. "I am Zix, station administrator. Your docking fees and supply requisitions can be settled at my office." Her gaze lingered on Nathan, taking in his obvious distress. "Our medical facilities are also available. For a price." Nathan straightened, fighting to maintain his composure. "Thank you, Administrator Zix. We'll need to discuss payment options. Our current circumstances are complicated." Zix's central eye narrowed. Complicated usually means expensive on Havens Point. But we'll sort it out. Follow me. As they made their way through the station's winding corridors, Nathan's technopathic senses continued to buzz with unease. Hidden cameras tracked their movements, and security checkpoints were far more sophisticated than one would expect for a simple trading post. Phoebe kept close to Nathan, ready to support him if he stumbled. Lyriel's ethereal form drew curious glances from the station's eclectic population, a mix of species both familiar and utterly alien. In Zix's office, the reality of their situation became clear. Without local currency or tradable goods, they had little to offer for the essential supplies they needed. Nathan's hand unconsciously went to his pocket, where the portable celiac stimulation device rested. "This technology," he said, placing the device on Zix's desk. "It's far beyond anything you'll find in this sector. Surely it's worth enough for docking fees, supplies, and information?" Zix's eyes widened as she examined the device. "Indeed, this will more than cover your expenses. But I must ask, where did you acquire such advanced technology?" Before Nathan could formulate a response, his body betrayed him. A violent tremor ran through him, and he collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. "Nathan!" Phoebe cried out, kneeling beside him. Zix stood, her expression a mix of concern and suspicion. "Get him to medical immediately. We'll continue this discussion once he's stable." As Phoebe and Lyriel helped Nathan to his feet, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Zix tapped the communication panel on her desk, her expression darkening as she listened to the report. "It seems your arrival has attracted unwanted attention," she said grimly. "We have incoming vessels, Zarkesh and Celiac. Havens Point is about to become far less peaceful." Nathan, despite his condition, managed to lock eyes with Zix. "You need to know what we're dealing with. The fate of the stars might depend on it." Zix regarded him for a long moment before nodding. "Very well. But first, let's get you stabilized. Whatever's going on, I suspect we'll all need to be at our best to face what's coming." As they hurried towards the medical bay, Nathan's mind raced. They had found refuge, but at what cost? With both Zarkesh and Celiac forces closing in, Havens Point was about to become a battleground, and they were caught in the middle of it all. As they hurried towards the medical bay, Nathan's condition rapidly deteriorated. His legs gave out, forcing Phoebe and Lyriel to support him between them. Zix led the way, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. "We don't have much time," Zix said, her central eye darting between Nathan and the flashing warning lights. "Your pursuers will be here soon." They reached the medical bay, a sterile chamber filled with an eclectic mix of advanced and cobbled-together equipment. A spindly, multi-armed robot approached, its ocular sensors scanning Nathan's trembling form. "Lie him down," the robot instructed, its voice a soft, metallic hum. As Phoebe and Lyriel eased Nathan onto a diagnostic bed, he gripped Phoebe's arm. "The communication array," he gasped. "We need to warn Earth." Zix's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Before anyone could respond, the station shuddered. A deep, resonant boom echoed through the structure. "They're here," Zix hissed. She tapped a series of commands into her wrist computer. "I've initiated lockdown procedures, but it won't hold them for long." Nathan struggled to sit up, fighting against the robot's attempts to restrain him. "Listen to me," he said, his voice hoarse. "We need access to your long-range communications. The fate of Earth, of the entire galaxy, depends on it." Zix regarded him skeptically. "And why should I trust you?" Lyriel stepped forward, her ethereal form pulsing with intensity. "Because the alternative is unthinkable. The Sheliak and Zarkesh are pursuing technologies that could enslave entire worlds. We've seen it firsthand." Another tremor shook the station. Alarms blared, their urgent wails echoing through the corridors. Zix's expression hardened. "Fine, but if you're lying, I'll space you myself." She turned to the medical robot. "Stabilize him. Quickly." The robot produced a hypo spray, pressing it against Nathan's neck. The effect was almost instantaneous. Color returned to his face, and his trembling subsided. "This is a temporary solution," the robot warned. "It will counteract the withdrawal symptoms for a few hours at most." Nathan nodded, swinging his legs off the bed. "It'll have to do. Where's the communication array?" Zix led them out of the medical bay and through a maze of corridors. The station's diverse population was in a panic, aliens of all shapes and sizes rushing to secure their belongings or flee to escape pods. "It's in a restricted section," Zix explained as they ran. "Part of a hidden galactic Concordat command center." Phoebe's eyes widened. "The Concordat has a presence here?" "Haven's Point isn't just a trading post," Zix replied. "We monitor activities in this sector, including those of the Sheliak and Zarkesh." They reached a heavily fortified door. Zix placed her hand on a scanner, and the massive portal slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, they found a state-of-the-art command center. Holographic displays showed the approaching Sheliak and Zarkesh ships, their weapons already powered up. Nathan immediately moved to the central console, his fingers dancing across the controls. His technopathic abilities allowed him to interface directly with the system, bypassing security protocols and accessing the encrypted communication channels. "I'll need a few minutes to compose and send the message," he said, his voice strained with concentration. Zix nodded, then turned to Phoebe and Lyriel. "Help me coordinate the station's defenses. We need to buy him time." As they worked, Nathan felt the strain of interfacing with the alien technology. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his hands began to shake. He reached into his pocket, producing the makeshift pleasure stimulation device he had cobbled together. With a grimace, he activated it, feeling the rush of artificial euphoria that allowed him to push through the pain. Phoebe noticed his discomfort. "Nathan, are you all right?" He nodded tersely, not taking his eyes off the console. "Almost done. Just need to." "There." A confirmation chime sounded, indicating the encrypted message had been sent. Before they could celebrate, the station rocked violently. Emergency lights flashed, bathing the command center in an eerie red glow. "They've breached our outer defenses," Zix announced, her voice tight with tension. Nathan stumbled away from the console, the effects of the pleasure stimulation device already fading. Phoebe rushed to support him, concern etched on her features. "What now?" Lyriel asked, her ethereal form flickering with anxiety. Zix's expression was grim. "Now we fight." Nathan, I need you to enhance our shields and weapon systems. Phoebe, help coordinate evacuation efforts for non-essential personnel. Lyriel, use your empathic abilities to keep people calm and organized. As they moved to carry out their tasks, Nathan felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. The makeshift stimulation device sputtered and died, leaving him gasping. Phoebe noticed his distress. I'll see if I can find something in the medical supplies to help, she said, squeezing his hand before rushing off. With the Sheliak and Zarkesh ships closing in and Haven's Point's defenses straining under the assault, Nathan forced himself to focus. He placed his hands on the nearest terminal, reaching out with his technopathic senses to merge with the station systems. As energy coursed through him, Nathan knew they were in for the fight of their lives. The fate of Haven's Point, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. And he was right at the center of it all, his body and mind pushed to their limits. The first volley of return fire from Haven's Point lit up the void of space, marking the beginning of a battle that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-alien relations throughout the cosmos. Galaxy. The station's defensive fire illuminated the darkness of space, streaking towards the approaching Sheliak and Zarkesh vessels. Alarms blared throughout Haven's Point as the first enemy shots impacted the station's shields. Nathan gritted his teeth, hands splayed across the control panel as he channeled his technopathic abilities into the station systems. He could feel the strain on the shields, the surge of power through the weapons arrays as they returned fire. Shields at 87%, Zix announced, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. We can't sustain this level of assault for long. Phoebe's fingers flew across a nearby console, coordinating evacuation efforts. Non-essential personnel are moving to the escape pods, she reported. But there's panic in the lower levels. Lyriel's ethereal form shimmered with exertion as she projected waves of calm throughout the station. I'm doing my best to keep everyone focused, she said, her voice strained. But the fear is overwhelming. Another violent tremor shook the command center as a Zarkesh energy blast found its mark. Nathan stumbled, his connection to the station's systems flickering. The absence of the pleasure stimulation device was becoming more apparent with each passing moment, his body screaming for the artificial high it had come to depend on. Nathan, Phoebe cried out, seeing him falter. Hold on, I'll find something to help. She dashed out of the command center, leaving Nathan to fight through the pain and focus on the battle at hand. He pushed deeper into the station systems, enhancing targeting algorithms and rerouting power to critical systems. Outside, the void of space became a deadly light show. The Sheliak research vessel unleashed a barrage of energy pulses, their weapons clearly modified beyond their usual scientific purposes. The Zarkesh battlecruiser responded with a salvo of missiles, their warheads designed to penetrate energy shields. Haven's Point shuddered under the assault, caught in the crossfire between two vastly superior forces. Nathan's enhanced targeting systems allowed the station to hold its own, but he knew it was only a matter of time before their defenses were overwhelmed. Multiple hull breaches detected, Zix reported, her voice tight with tension. We have boarders. Nathan's mind raced through the station's schematics, sealing off corridors and rerouting life support. I'm trying to contain them, he gasped, fighting against the growing discomfort in his body. Lyriel's form pulsed with alarm. I sense them. Two groups, different intentions, but both dangerous. On the security feeds, Nathan could see the chaos unfolding. A team of Sheliak researchers, led by a familiar face, Dr. Zara, fought their way through the station's lower levels. Their movements were precise, their goal clear: recapture Nathan and the Ascension Project data. From another section of the station, a squad of Zarkesh commandos advanced with military precision. Their leader, a scarred veteran Nathan recognized as Commander Vex, barked orders as they neutralized Haven's Point security forces. "We're being squeezed from both sides," Zix growled, her multiple arms working furiously across various control panels. Nathan's vision blurred, his connection to the station's systems becoming erratic. He could feel his control slipping, the need for stimulation overwhelming his senses. Just as he thought he might collapse, Phoebe burst back into the command center. "I found something," she exclaimed, holding up a sleek device. "It's an experimental neural stabilizer. I've modified it to work with human physiology. It might help." Without hesitation, she pressed the device against Nathan's temple. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a wave of clarity washed over him. The tremor subsided, his mind sharpening to a razor's edge. "It's working," he breathed, his connection to Haven's point system solidifying once more. "I can think clearly now." With renewed focus, Nathan delved deeper into the station's capabilities. He accessed the advanced communication array, an idea forming in his mind. "We need to expose them," he said, fingers flying across the controls. "Broadcast the truth about the Sheliak Ascension Project and the Zarkesh weaponization plans. If we can reach enough systems, they'll have to stand down or risk galactic intervention." Zix's eyes widened. "That's actually brilliant. Do it." As Nathan prepared the transmission, Phoebe and Lyriel worked feverishly to compile all the data they had gathered on both factions' experiments. The station rocked with another impact, the shield straining under the continued assault. Just as Nathan was about to initiate the broadcast, the doors to the command center exploded inward. Dr. Zara strode through the smoke, her Sheliak research team behind her. From the opposite entrance, Commander Vex and his Zarkesh commandos burst in, weapons raised. "Step away from the console," Dr. Zara demanded, her voice cold and calculating. "Hand over the human and the data." Commander Vex growled, his scarred face twisted in a snarl. Nathan's hand hovered over the transmission button, time seeming to slow as both factions raised their weapons. The fate of Haven's Point, and possibly the entire galaxy, hung in the balance of the next few seconds. Suddenly, the neural stabilizer attached to Nathan's temple sparked and sputtered. A surge of energy coursed through his body, overloading his senses. He cried out in pain, collapsing to the floor as his technopathic connection to Haven's Point went haywire. The station's lights flickered wildly, gravity fluctuated, and security systems activated at random. Confusion spread through both the Sheliak and Zarkesh forces, their carefully planned assaults thrown into chaos. As Nathan writhed on the floor, his mind lost in a sea of pleasure signals and sensory overload, Phoebe rushed to his side. She frantically worked to remove the malfunctioning device, her fingers fumbling with the attachment. Lyriel, sensing the opportunity in the confusion, gathered her strength. She projected a powerful wave of emotion towards Dr. Zara and Commander Vex, focusing on feelings of doubt, uncertainty, and a deep longing for peace. The two leaders faltered, their single-minded pursuit of their goals momentarily shaken by the empathic assault. Their forces, caught off guard by their leader's hesitation, lowered their weapons slightly. In the midst of the chaos, with Haven's Point system spiraling out of control and Nathan incapacitated, the future of the station and its inhabitants hung by a thread. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the balance of power throughout the galaxy. As Nathan's body convulsed on the floor, Phoebe's mind raced. She recognized the telltale signs of neural overload and knew she had to act fast. With practiced precision, she disconnected the malfunctioning stabilizer from Nathan's temple, her fingers moving deftly despite the chaos around them. Nathan's body jerked violently as the device came free, his nervous system struggling to recalibrate. Phoebe cradled his head, her eyes darting between his contorted face and the ongoing standoff. Lyriel's empathic assault on Dr. Zara and Commander Vex bore fruit. The Sheliak scientist's posture softened, her cold demeanor cracking under the wave of projected emotions. Commander Vex's scarred face twisted in confusion, his weapon lowering as doubt crept into his mind. Zix seized the moment of hesitation. Her multiple arms flew across the control panels, activating Haven's Point's internal defenses. Shimmering energy barriers sprang to life, separating the opposing forces and creating a temporary stalemate. Weapons neutralized, Zix announced, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. We have a chance to talk this out. Phoebe paid little attention to the diplomatic maneuvering unfolding around her. Her focus remained on Nathan, whose convulsions had subsided but left him unconscious. She rushed to a nearby medical cabinet, retrieving a hypo spray filled with a carefully calibrated mixture of stabilizing compounds. "Hold on, Nathan," she murmured, pressing the device against his neck. The cocktail of drugs hissed as it entered his system, designed to counteract the neural overload and bring his brain chemistry back into balance. As Phoebe tended to Nathan, Zix took charge of the tense situation. "Dr. Zara, Commander Vex," she addressed the leaders firmly. "I propose we move this discussion to a more appropriate venue. There's much you both need to know." Lyriel glided to Zix's side, her ethereal form rippling with concentrated effort as she projected an aura of calm. "Violence will solve nothing," she said, her voice echoing with otherworldly resonance. "We have a chance for understanding." The Sheliak and Zarkesh forces, still separated by energy barriers, looked to their leaders for guidance. Dr. Zara's antennae twitched as she considered the proposal. Commander Vex's hand tightened on his weapon, but he made no move to raise it. "Very well," Dr. Zara said at last, her voice carrying a hint of curiosity beneath its usual clinical tone. "We will hear what you have to say." Commander Vex grunted his assent, his eyes never leaving the prone form of Nathan. "But no tricks," he growled. "One false move, and we finish this the old-fashioned way." Zix nodded, then activated Haven's Point's emergency protocols. A low hum filled the air as a powerful dampening field engulfed the station, rendering all energy weapons inert. "Insurance," she explained to the scowling commander. "Now let's talk." As the leaders filed out of the command center, Phoebe remained by Nathan's side. His breathing had steadied, but his eyes darted rapidly beneath closed lids, mind still processing the intense signals it had received. "Come on, Nathan," Phoebe whispered, squeezing his hand. "We need you." Minutes stretched into hours as negotiations unfolded in Haven's Point's conference room. Zix revealed the existence of the Galactic Concordat, explaining its role in maintaining balance across the cosmos. Dr. Zara and Commander Vex listened with growing interest, their earlier hostility giving way to wary curiosity. In the command center, Nathan's eyes snapped open. He gasped, sitting up abruptly and startling Phoebe. I can see it all," he breathed, his gaze unfocused. "Nathan, what do you mean?" Phoebe asked, helping him to his feet. Nathan's hands trembled as he reached for the nearest console. The moment his fingers made contact, holographic displays sprang to life around him. Data streams flowed through the air, responding to his thoughts with lightning speed. "The neural overload," Nathan explained, his voice filled with wonder. "It's changed something in my brain. I can access systems I never could before. It's like the station is an extension of my own body." Phoebe watched in amazement as Nathan's fingers danced across the controls, pulling up encrypted files and classified data with ease. The Sheliak Ascension Project, the Zarkesh Weapons Research. "It's all here," he said, his eyes glowing with an inner light. As Nathan sifted through the data, his face contorted in a mixture of concentration and pleasure. Phoebe noticed a flush creeping up his neck, his breathing quickening. "Nathan, are you all right?" He nodded, a beatific smile spreading across his face. "Better than all right. Every problem I solve, every encryption I crack. It feels incredible, like a surge of pure joy through my entire body." Phoebe's scientific curiosity warred with her concern for Nathan's well-being. She made a mental note to monitor him closely, worried about the long-term effects of this neural alteration. Together, they pored over the decrypted files, uncovering the true nature of both the Shiliak and Zarkesh experiments. "This is incredible," Phoebe breathed, her eyes wide. They've both been working with the same ancient alien technology, but from completely different angles. Nathan nodded, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. "And if we combine their research, we could revolutionize medicine, interspecies communication, even space travel." As they worked, Phoebe couldn't help but notice the changes in Nathan. His movements were more fluid, his thought processes visibly faster. Every breakthrough was accompanied by a small shudder of pleasure, his pupils dilating momentarily. "We need to show this to the others," Nathan said, compiling their findings into a comprehensive report. "This could change everything." They hurried to the conference room, where tension still simmered beneath the surface of polite negotiations. All eyes turned to them as they burst in. Nathan's face flushed with excitement, and Phoebe's with a mixture of concern and anticipation. "We've found something," Nathan announced, his voice bearing a new authority. "Something that could benefit all of us." As he began to explain their discoveries, Lyriel sensed a shift in the emotional landscape of the room. The hostility and suspicion that had dominated earlier were giving way to curiosity and cautious hope. She subtly amplified these positive emotions, encouraging the spirit of cooperation that was beginning to take root. Zara's antennae quivered with interest as Nathan detailed the potential medical applications of their combined research. Commander Vex leaned forward, his scarred face softening as he considered the possibilities for enhanced communication between species. Zix, seeing the opportunity for lasting peace, stepped forward. "I propose we establish a joint research initiative," she said, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with enthusiasm. "Haven's Point can serve as neutral ground, with oversight from the Galactic Concordat, to ensure transparency and ethical practices." As the room buzzed with discussion, Nathan was hit by another wave of intense pleasure. The thrill of problem-solving, of bringing disparate groups together, sent shivers of euphoria through his altered neural pathways. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white as he fought to maintain composure. Phoebe noticed his reaction and placed a steadying hand on his arm. "We'll figure this out," she whispered, her voice filled with purpose. "Whatever's happening to you, we'll face it together." Nathan nodded gratefully, focusing on the task at hand. As plans for the research initiative took shape and orders were given to recall the Shiliak and Zarkesh ships, he knew they were standing on the brink of a new era. The battle for Haven's Point had been averted, transformed into an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation. But as he looked at Phoebe's concerned face and felt the lingering tingles of pleasure in his altered brain, Nathan realized that their greatest challenges might lie ahead. The galaxy was changing, and so was he. What that meant for their future remained to be seen. As Nathan contemplated the uncertain future, a sudden wave of sensation washed over him, causing him to grip the edge of the conference table tightly. "Nathan?" Phoebe's concerned voice cut through the haze of pleasure. "What's happening?" He took a deep breath, struggling to focus. It's getting stronger. My connection to the station. I can feel everything." Dr. Zar's antennae twitched with interest. "Fascinating. It seems the neural overload has had unforeseen consequences on your technopathic abilities." Nathan nodded, his eyes unfocused as he processed the flood of information streaming through his mind. "I can access systems I never could before. It's like I'm becoming one with Haven's Point." Commander Vex leaned forward, his scarred face a mask of suspicion. "And what exactly can you do with this new power?" In response, Nathan raised a hand. The room's holographic displays sprang to life, filling the air with streams of data. "Everything," he breathed. "I can see it all. The Shiliak research, the Zarkesh weapons designs, even encrypted files I shouldn't be able to access. The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Dr. Zara began rattling off a series of commands to her assistants, while Commander Vex barked orders into his communicator. Zix moved to Nathan's side, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern. "Nathan, I need you to focus," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Can you interface with the station's long-range communication array?" He nodded, closing his eyes in concentration. A moment later, the familiar hum of the array activating filled the air. Nathan's eyes snapped open, wide with alarm. I think I just broadcast something. A data packet. I couldn't control it." Phoebe rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying across the interface. Confirmed. A fragment of the combined Shiliak and Zarkesh research data was just transmitted across several sectors. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Vex was the first to speak, his voice a low growl. "You've just painted a target on this station. Every species within range will be scrambling to get their hands on that data." As if on cue, the station's proximity alarms blared to life. Zix moved to the main view screen, her multiple arms working the controls with practiced ease. "We have incoming vessels. A lot of them." Nathan sagged in his chair, overwhelmed by the unintended consequences of his actions. Phoebe placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, even as her scientific curiosity warred with her concern. "We need to run some tests," she said, addressing the room. "Figure out exactly what's happening to Nathan's physiology." Dr. Zara nodded in agreement. "I propose a series of controlled experiments. With your permission, of course," she added, glancing at Nathan. Before he could respond, Commander Vex cut in. "Not without Zarkesh observers present. We need to understand the potential military applications of this. Enhancement." Zix raised her hands, calling for calm. "Agreed. I'll oversee the experiments personally to ensure all ethical guidelines are followed. But first, we need to deal with our unexpected guests." The view screen flickered, revealing a sleek, crystalline ship unlike anything they'd seen before. A melodious voice filled the room, speaking in perfectly accented galactic standard. "Greetings, Haven's Point. I am Ambassador Talia of the Ethery. We come seeking knowledge and offering our expertise in emotion-based sciences." Lyriel gasped, her ethereal form shimmering with excitement. "My people," she whispered, "they've come." As the Ethery ship moved into docking position, another alert sounded. A familiar vessel appeared on the screen, its hull covered in a patchwork of mismatched armor plating. Nathan recognized it immediately. "That's Krone's ship, the black market dealer, who sold me the original pleasure device." Zix's bioluminescent patterns flashed with irritation. "Patch him through." Krone's gruff voice filled the room, tinged with equal parts amusement and threat. Well, looks like you've stumbled onto something big, kid. I want in on the action, a fair share of the research data, or I start making calls to some very interested parties who won't be as polite as me." Commander Vex's hand moved to his weapon, but Zix shook her head. "We'll handle this diplomatically. For now." As more ships began to appear on the long-range scanners, Zix turned to address the room. "We need to implement emergency protocols. Assign different sections of the station to each species to prevent conflicts. Nathan, Phoebe, Lyriel, I need you three to act as intermediaries. Your unique experiences make you invaluable in maintaining peace." Nathan nodded, still reeling from the rapid changes. As he stood, another wave of pleasure washed over him, this one more intense than before. He gasped, steadying himself against the table. Phoebe was at his side in an instant, her face a mask of concern. "That's it. We're going to medical right now. Dr. Zara, I'll need your assistance." As they made their way out of the conference room, Nathan's mind raced. The station hummed around him, alive with data and possibility. Despite the chaos unfolding, he couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration. Whatever was happening to him, whatever challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The doors of the medical bay hissed open, and Nathan found himself at the center of a whirlwind of activity. Phoebe and Dr. Zara worked in tandem, setting up monitoring equipment and preparing a battery of tests. As Nathan lay back on the examination table, he could feel the pleasure building again, a constant undercurrent of sensation that threatened to overwhelm him. "Hold still," Phoebe murmured, attaching neural sensors to his temples. "We're going to figure this out, Nathan. I promise." As the first scans began, Nathan closed his eyes, trying to focus on the immediate moment rather than the uncertain future that stretched before them. Havens Point, once a hidden outpost, now stood at the center of a gathering storm. And he, for better or worse, was at the eye of it all. As the medical bay doors closed behind them, Nathan felt the familiar hum of the station's systems intensify. The constant stream of data flowing through his mind seemed to pulse in time with the beeping of the medical equipment. "All right, Nathan," Phoebe said, her voice steady despite the concern evident in her eyes. "We're going to start with a basic neural scan. Try to relax." Nathan nodded, closing his eyes as the scanner hummed to life. He focused on his breathing, trying to ignore the waves of pleasure that rippled through him with each new data point processed. Dr. Zara's antennae twitched as she studied the readouts. Fascinating. The neural pathways associated with pleasure and information processing are hyperstimulated. It's as if his brain has created new connections to handle the influx of data. As the initial scans concluded, the medical bay doors slid open, revealing a diverse group of alien scientists. Celiac crystalline forms glittered under the harsh medical lighting, while Zarkesh's scaled skin rippled with barely held back excitement. "What's going on?" Nathan asked, sitting up on the examination table. Phoebe placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Word of your condition has spread. Every species on the station is eager to study your enhanced neural pathways." Nathan felt a surge of anxiety, which quickly transformed into an intense burst of pleasure. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. "This is precisely why we need to conduct controlled experiments," Phoebe said, addressing the gathered scientists. "We need to understand and stabilize Nathan's condition before we can even consider broader applications." Over the next few days, Havens Point transformed into a hub of frenzied research activity. Nathan found himself at the center of it all, subjected to a battery of tests and examinations. Each new discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community and waves of pleasure through Nathan's altered nervous system. Phoebe, noticing Nathan's growing discomfort with the constant attention, proposed a new approach. "I've designed a specialized sensory chamber," she explained, leading Nathan to a small, egg-shaped pod. "It should allow us to modulate your sensory input and help you gain better control over your responses." As Nathan stepped into the chamber, he felt an immediate sense of calm. The constant background noise of the station's systems faded to a manageable hum. "How does it feel?" Phoebe's voice came through a speaker, tinged with static. "Better," Nathan replied, closing his eyes. "It's like I can finally hear myself think." Over the next few hours, Phoebe carefully adjusted the chamber's settings, alternating periods of sensory deprivation with controlled stimuli. Nathan found himself able to focus his abilities, filtering out unnecessary data and honing in on specific systems. Suddenly, Nathan gasped, "Phoebe, I think I can project the sensations." "What do you mean?" Phoebe's voice crackled through the speaker. "It's like I can push the pleasure outward. Let me try something." Nathan concentrated, focusing on the warm, tingling sensation that had become a constant companion. He imagined directing it towards Phoebe, like a beam of sunlight. Outside the chamber, Phoebe's eyes widened as a wave of euphoria washed over her. "Oh my," she breathed, steadying herself against the console. "That's remarkable." The discovery of Nathan's ability to project pleasurable sensations sent ripples of excitement through the research team. Dr. Zara immediately began theorizing about potential applications in medicine and psychology, while Commander Vex expressed interest in its use for interrogation and crowd control. As Nathan emerged from the sensory chamber, he found himself at the center of a maelstrom of activity. Scientists clamored for his attention, each eager to be the first to unlock the secrets of his enhanced neural pathways. Amidst the chaos, a commotion near the medical bay entrance caught Nathan's attention. A group of Exilian traders, led by the unmistakable figure of Crone, were arguing heatedly with station security. "What's going on?" Nathan asked, pushing through the crowd. Zix materialized beside him, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with agitation. Crone and his crew attempted to access restricted research data. They were caught by the security systems. Nathan frowned, realizing he had sensed the intrusion attempt without consciously processing it. "I think I might have helped stop them. It's like the station's security protocols are an extension of my own thoughts now." Zix's patterns shifted to a contemplative blue. This incident highlights the need for increased security measures. "Nathan, your connection to the station's systems could be invaluable in protecting our research." As Crone was led away in restraints, shouting promises of retribution, Ambassador Talia of the Ethery approached. Her crystalline form seemed to shimmer with nearly unleashed excitement. "I may have a solution to our security concerns," she said, her melodious voice carrying easily over the din of the medical bay. "We Ethery have long used our empathic abilities to promote harmony among diverse groups. Perhaps, with Nathan's unique talents, we could create a station-wide field of cooperative energy." The proposal sparked intense debate among the gathered scientists and diplomats. Nathan found himself torn between excitement at the potential applications of his abilities and a growing sense of unease at the weight of responsibility placed upon him. As the arguments raged around him, Nathan felt a familiar presence at his side. Phoebe slipped her hand into his, offering silent support. "Whatever you decide," she whispered, "I'm here with you." Nathan squeezed her hand gratefully, his mind racing with the possibilities and pitfalls that lay ahead. The future of Haven's Point, and perhaps the galaxy itself, seemed to hinge on the decisions they would make in the coming days. As he stood there, surrounded by the diverse array of alien species all clamoring for a piece of the future he represented, Nathan knew that his journey was a long way to go. From being over, Nathan's newly discovered abilities had opened up a Pandora's box of possibilities, and the repercussions were only beginning to unfold. As Nathan and Phoebe exited the medical bay, they were met by a grim-faced Zix. "We need to talk," the station commander said, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. "The situation has become complicated." They followed Zix to a private conference room, where Dr. Zara and Commander Vex were already waiting. The tension in the air was palpable as they took their seats. "Nathan," Zix began, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "we've made a decision. Given the unprecedented nature of your condition and the potential risks involved, we believe it's necessary to place you in medically induced stasis while we conduct further research." Nathan felt a surge of panic, which quickly transformed into a wave of pleasure. He gripped the edge of the table, struggling to maintain his composure. "Is that really necessary? I feel fine, and we've made so much progress, Dash." "It's for your own safety," Phoebe interrupted, her eyes filled with concern. "Your neural pathways are evolving at an alarming rate. We need time to understand what's happening before it goes too far." Before Nathan could protest further, Dr. Zar stepped forward with a hypospray. "This will put you into a controlled sleep state. When you wake up, we'll have more answers. I promise." As the sedative took effect, Nathan's last conscious thought was of Phoebe's hand gripping his own, her touch a lifeline in the sea of uncertainty. Days turned into weeks as Nathan slumbered in his stasis pod. Phoebe threw herself into her work, coordinating the diverse team of alien scientists now residing on Haven's Point. The station hummed with activity, but without Nathan's stabilizing presence, systems began to malfunction with increasing frequency. Phoebe rubbed her tired eyes as she reviewed the latest data on Nathan's neural scans. The conference room around her was a cacophony of alien voices, each species represented by their top researchers. "We must wake him," insisted Dr. Thax, the lead Zarlath scientist. His exoskeleton clicked with impatience. "Our quantum resonance scans cannot penetrate the stasis field. We need active neural patterns to proceed." Phoebe shook her head. "It's too risky. We don't know how his enhanced abilities will interact with Dash." A loud bang interrupted her as the door slammed open. A crystalline figure strode in, its facets refracting the room's light in dazzling patterns. "Dr. Lasara," Phoebe breathed, recognizing the Sheliak scientist from briefing files. "I demand access to the subject," Lasara announced, her voice a chorus of harmonics. "My expertise in the original Ascension project is crucial to understanding his condition." The room erupted into argument, each faction pressing their own agenda. Phoebe felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her as she realized a decision had to be made. "Enough," she said, her voice cutting through the din. "We'll wake Nathan, but under strict conditions. I want a specialized chamber constructed, combining the best of our technologies. We'll create a controlled environment for his awakening and examination." As the scientists dispersed to begin preparations, Phoebe approached Dr. Lasara. "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation, Doctor. Nathan isn't just a test subject. He's a person, and his well-being is our top priority." Lasara's crystalline form shimmered, a Sheliak expression of acknowledgement. "Of course, but you must also understand the potential his condition represents. The advancements we could make Dash will mean nothing if it costs Nathan his life," Phoebe interrupted. "We proceed carefully or not at all." The specialized chamber hummed with energy as the stasis field around Nathan began to dissipate. Phoebe watched anxiously from behind a force field, surrounded by a phalanx of alien scientists. Nathan's eyes fluttered open, and immediately the chamber's systems surged to life. Holographic displays flickered and stabilized, showing real-time data on Nathan's neural activity. "Phoebe?" Nathan's voice was weak, but his eyes were alert. "What's happening?" Before she could answer, Nathan gasped, his back arching. The chamber systems went into overdrive, screens flashing with an influx of data. "Remarkable," Dr. Lasara murmured, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. "His neural interface is active. He's connecting directly with the station systems." As if to confirm her words, the persistent malfunctions that had plagued Haven's Point since Nathan's stasis suddenly ceased. The station's efficiency spiked, systems optimizing themselves faster than any engineer could have managed. "Nathan," Phoebe called out, fighting to keep her voice steady. "How do you feel?" "I feel everything," Nathan replied, his eyes wide with wonder. "The station, the ships in dock, even the stellar winds outside. It's all here in my mind." Dr. Kthak stepped forward, mandibles clicking excitedly. "We must begin the examination immediately. Our scanning equipment is primed and ready." As the Zarlath applied their advanced scanning techniques, a hush fell over the observing scientists. The holographic displays showed Nathan's neural structure in unprecedented detail, revealing something that defied all expectations. "Impossible," Dr. Lasara whispered, her crystalline form pulsing with shock. "There's a new neural structure. It's unlike anything in our databases." Phoebe leaned in, studying the scans intently. "What does it do?" Dr. Kthak's exoskeleton rippled with excitement. "It appears to be a biological interface, capable of directly processing and manipulating energy fields. The implications are staggering." As the scientists debated the significance of their discovery, Nathan's voice cut through the chatter. "Something's wrong," he said, his face contorted in pain. "It's too much. I can't contain it." Alarms blared as Nathan's vital signs began to fluctuate wildly. The new neural structure was growing, putting increasing strain on his human physiology. "We need to stabilize him," Phoebe shouted, her mind racing. "If we don't act fast, his body won't be able to sustain these enhanced abilities." As the crisis unfolded, the station's long-range sensors lit up with activity. A fleet of unknown ships was approaching Haven's Point at high speed, their intentions unclear. Phoebe found herself at the center of a perfect storm. Nathan's life hung in the balance. A potentially hostile fleet was bearing down on them, and the future of human evolution itself seemed to rest on her next decision. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Prepare for emergency procedures," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "And someone get me a direct line to that incoming fleet. We need answers, and we need them now." As the room erupted into frenzied activity, Phoebe's gaze met Nathan's through the force field. In that moment of connection, she silently vowed to find a way through this crisis, regardless of the cost. The fate of Haven's Point, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rested in their hands. The fate of Haven's Point, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rested in their combined efforts. As Phoebe's mind raced through potential solutions, the chamber's alarms blared with renewed urgency. Nathan's body convulsed, his neural interface overloading the station systems. Sparks erupted from nearby consoles, and the force field flickered ominously. "We're losing him," Dr. Kthak chittered, his exoskeleton vibrating with agitation. "His human physiology can't contain the neural expansion." In that moment of crisis, Phoebe made a decision that would alter the course of their research forever. "Prepare for consciousness transfer," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "We're moving Nathan to an artificial body." The research team sprang into action, their diverse expertise coalescing into a unified effort. Dr. Lasara's crystalline form pulsed with energy as she configured the chamber's systems for the transfer process. Zarlath neural technicians swarmed around a sleek, humanoid form that had been developed as a theoretical prototype. As the preparations neared completion, the station's long-range sensors blared a new warning. Phoebe's attention split between the approaching fleet and Nathan's deteriorating condition. "Six," she called over the comm. "We've got company. I need you to handle the diplomatic front while we stabilize Nathan." The Sheliak scientist stepped forward, her facets refracting the chamber's harsh light. "The transfer process is ready," she announced. "But I must warn you, this is unprecedented. The risks are significant." Phoebe met Nathan's pain-filled gaze through the force field. "Do it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The chamber hummed with energy as the transfer began. Nathan's body went rigid, his eyes rolling back as his consciousness was carefully mapped and extracted. The artificial body, a marvel of multi-species engineering, began to pulse with an inner light. Midway through the procedure, a new voice crackled over the station's comm system. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UNSS Phoenix. Haven's Point, please respond." Phoebe's heart raced at the mention of a human vessel. Earth had finally found them, but their timing couldn't have been worse. As Zix's voice responded to the hail, Phoebe noticed a disturbance in the transfer field. Nathan's unique neural structure was interacting with the synthetic systems in unexpected ways. The artificial body began to emit a low-frequency hum, and the surrounding space seemed to ripple. "Energy spike detected," Dr. Kthak warned, his mandibles clicking rapidly. The subject is attempting to manipulate local space-time. Phoebe's mind reeled at the implications. Nathan's abilities had grown beyond their wildest predictions. She quickly diverted power from non-essential systems, reinforcing the containment field around the transfer chamber. The station groaned under the strain, lights flickering throughout Haven's Point. In the distance, Phoebe could hear the confused and frightened voices of the station's diverse inhabitants. "Dr. Lasura," Phoebe called out, her voice tight with tension. "We need to stabilize him. Can we use a modified version of the Ascension technology?" The Sheliak scientist's crystalline form vibrated with excitement. "Yes, but it's risky. We'd be pushing the boundaries of known science." "Do it," Phoebe ordered, her eyes fixed on Nathan's new form. As Dr. Lasara began the modified Ascension protocol, Zarlath scientists swarmed around the chamber, enhancing the process with their advanced neural interfacing techniques. The combined efforts of the multi-species team began to show results. The space-time distortions gradually subsided, and Nathan's neural patterns synchronized with his artificial body. With a final surge of energy, the transfer completed. The chamber fell silent, save for the soft hum of the artificial body systems coming online. Nathan's new eyes opened, glowing with an inner light. He sat up slowly, taking in his surroundings with a mixture of wonder and confusion. "Phoebe," his voice was different, resonant with synthetic undertones. "What happened? I feel everything." Before Phoebe could respond, Zix's voice came over the comm system. "Phoebe, we have a situation. The human fleet is requesting permission to dock. They're expressing concern over the energy fluctuations they detected." Nathan stood, his movements fluid and precise. "I can help with that," he said, his voice growing more confident. "I can interface directly with the station's systems now. I understand them in ways I never could before." As Nathan connected with Haven's Point systems, Phoebe watched in awe. Malfunctions that had plagued the station for weeks persevered themselves in seconds. Power distribution optimized, and communication channels cleared of interference. "Tell Captain Rodriguez we're ready to receive them," Phoebe said, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "And inform all research teams to prepare their data. We have a lot to discuss." As the UNSS Phoenix began its docking procedures, Phoebe turned back to Nathan. His new form was undeniably alien, yet his eyes held the same warmth she remembered. She reached out hesitantly, her hand stopping just short of his synthetic skin. "How do you feel?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's lips curved into a familiar smile. "Different. Better. Like I've finally found the missing piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was solving." He paused, his expression growing serious. "But Phoebe, there's so much more. The data from the Phoenix. I can see patterns, connections we never imagined." Before Phoebe could inquire further, Zix's voice interrupted once more. "The human delegation is ready to board. Phoebe, Nathan, we need you in the main conference room. It's time to show them what we've discovered here on Haven's Point." As they made their way out of the chamber, Phoebe couldn't help but feel that they stood on the precipice of a new era. With Nathan's transformation, the arrival of the human fleet, and the breakthroughs in pleasure technology, the galaxy was about to change in ways none of them could have predicted. The conference room doors loomed before them, beyond which waited representatives from Earth and the various alien factions. Phoebe took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Whatever came next, she knew that Haven's Point would be at the center of it all. As the conference room doors slid open, Phoebe and Nathan were greeted by a sea of expectant faces. Representatives from Earth stood alongside delegates from various alien factions, their diverse forms a testament to the unprecedented nature of this gathering. Captain Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, her crisp uniform a stark contrast to the eclectic attire of the alien delegates. "Dr. Phoebe Chun," she said, extending her hand. "It's an honor to finally meet you. And this must be." Her voice trailed off as she took in Nathan's synthetic form. "Nathan Reeves," Phoebe supplied, placing a reassuring hand on Nathan's arm. "He's undergone some significant changes recently." Nathan nodded, his glowing eyes scanning the room. "It's a pleasure to meet you all," he said, his voice carrying a slight synthetic resonance. "I look forward to sharing our discoveries." As the meeting progressed, Phoebe and Nathan presented their findings on pleasure technology and neural enhancement. The delegates listened with rapt attention, their reactions ranging from fascination to thinly veiled concern. "This is groundbreaking work," Captain Rodriguez said, leaning forward. "But I have to ask, what are the implications? The risks?" Before Phoebe could respond, Nathan stepped in. "Allow me to demonstrate," he said. With a subtle gesture, he interfaced with the room systems. The lights dimmed, and a holographic display sprang to life, showing intricate neural pathways and data streams. "Our research has unlocked new potentials in human cognition," Nathan explained, manipulating the display with mere thoughts. "But it's not without challenges. My transformation has given me unprecedented control over Haven's point systems, but it's also distanced me from my human experience." Phoebe picked up the thread. "That's why we've initiated a new phase of experiments. We're developing interfaces to bridge the gap between synthetic and organic experiences." As she spoke, Nathan's form flickered briefly, his outline blurring. A few delegates gasped, but Nathan quickly stabilized. "My apologies," he said. "I'm still adjusting to the full extent of my abilities." Captain Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. "I see the potential, but also the risks. We need to proceed carefully." She paused, then continued, "Which is why I have a proposal. We recently uncovered information about the Prometheus expedition's discoveries, ancient ruins that might be connected to your research." The room buzzed with excitement. Dr. Lasara, her crystalline form pulsing, spoke up. "Captain, are you suggesting a joint mission?" Rodriguez nodded. "Exactly. A team from Haven's Point, working alongside my crew. We believe these ruins might hold the key to understanding the origins of this technology." Nathan's eyes lit up, quite literally. "I volunteer to lead the expedition," he said, his voice firm. "My new form makes me uniquely suited for this task." Phoebe felt a surge of concern, but also recognition of the opportunity. "I'll go, too," she said. "We'll need to continue our research in the field." As the meeting adjourned and preparations for the expedition began, Phoebe pulled Nathan aside. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice low. "We don't know how your new form will react in an unknown environment." Nathan took her hand, his synthetic skin cool against hers. "I'm sure," he said. "This is our chance to unlock the full potential of what we've discovered. And," he hesitated, "it's a chance for me to test the limits of what I've become." Over the next few days, Haven's Point buzzed with activity. The expedition team was assembled, a diverse group of researchers and security personnel from multiple species. Dr. Lasara approached Phoebe and Nathan as they were overseeing the loading of equipment onto the research vessel. "I've made a discovery," she said, her voice pitched low. "The Sheliak Ascension Project, it wasn't entirely our own. We based it on fragmented data from the same civilization the Prometheus expedition encountered." Nathan's eyes widened. "Are you saying there's a connection between early human neural research and advanced alien technology?" Dr. Lasara's form shimmered with excitement. "It's possible, which makes this expedition even more crucial." As the ship prepared for departure, Phoebe found herself in her lab, making last-minute adjustments to a specialized interface. Nathan entered, moving with fluid grace. "Is that for me?" he asked, eyeing the device. Phoebe nodded. "It's an improved tactile feedback system. It should allow you to experience a wider range of physical sensations." Nathan's expression softened. "Thank you," he said, reaching out to touch her cheek. His fingers stopped just short, hovering in the air between them. "I missed that," he admitted quietly. Phoebe's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. "We'll figure this out," she promised. Together. As they boarded the ship, Phoebe couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The vessel hummed to life, its systems a blend of technologies from multiple species. Nathan interfaced with the ship, his eyes glowing brightly. "Course laid in," he announced. "Optimal route calculated." Captain Rodriguez, standing on the bridge, gave the order, "Take us out." The ship lifted off smoothly, leaving Haven's Point behind. As they accelerated towards their destination, Phoebe watched the stars streak by. Whatever awaited them on that distant planet, she knew their discoveries would change everything. The true test of their research, and of Nathan's new existence, was just beginning. The true test of their research, and of Nathan's new existence, was just starting. As the ship hurtled through space, Phoebe found herself lost in thought, staring out at the vast expanse before them. She was jolted from her reverie by a sudden lurch of the ship, followed by a series of alarms blaring throughout the vessel. "We've entered the planet's atmosphere," Nathan announced, his eyes glowing brightly as he interfaced with the ship systems. "The ruins' defense systems are active and far more advanced than we anticipated." Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands, brace for impact. We're going down hard." The ship shuddered violently as it plummeted towards the planet's surface. Phoebe gripped her seat, her knuckles turning white. With a bone-jarring crash, they landed, the hull groaning under the strain. As the dust settled, Phoebe unbuckled herself and stumbled to her feet. "Nathan, are you all right?" Nathan nodded, his synthetic form seemingly unaffected by the crash. "I'm fine. We need to move quickly. The defense systems are recalibrating." The expedition team disembarked, finding themselves surrounded by towering structures of an alien design. Crystalline spires reached towards the sky, pulsating with an inner light that seemed to respond to their presence. Dr. Lasara's crystalline form vibrated with excitement. "Fascinating. These structures bear similarities to early Sheliak architecture, but far more advanced." Before anyone could respond, a shimmering energy field sprang to life, separating the team into smaller groups. Phoebe found herself isolated with Nathan in a vast chamber filled with pulsating crystalline structures. "Nathan, can you interface with these systems?" Phoebe asked, her voice tinged with urgency. Nathan's eyes flickered as he attempted to connect. "It's unlike anything I've encountered before. The defense system. It's not just testing our technological capabilities. It's evaluating our capacity for experiencing and controlling pleasure sensations." Phoebe's eyes widened. "That aligns with our research on Haven's Point. But why would an ancient civilization build defenses based on pleasure technology?" As Nathan delved deeper into the crystalline network, Phoebe turned her attention to the symbols and energy patterns surrounding them. Her years of research in pleasure technology allowed her to recognize familiar patterns amidst the alien designs. "Nathan, look," she called out, pointing to a series of intricate glyphs etched into the chamber walls. "These symbols, they're representing neural pathways. And these," she gestured to a cluster of pulsating crystals, "I think their interface is designed to connect with organic nervous systems." Nathan nodded, his synthetic features set in concentration. "You're right, but be careful, Phoebe. Direct contact with this technology could be dangerous." As they worked to decipher the ancient systems, a holographic projection suddenly sprang to life around them. Ethereal figures danced through the air, telling the story of a civilization that had achieved unimaginable heights through the power of thought and pleasure. "They could manipulate reality itself," Nathan murmured, his voice filled with awe. "But look!" Their pursuit of ever greater sensations led to their downfall. The projection showed scenes of societal collapse, the once great civilization crumbling under the weight of its own desires. Phoebe shook her head, her mind racing with the implications. We need to find a way through these defenses, Nathan. The others could be in danger. Nathan's eyes lit up with an idea. I can use my synthetic body as a buffer. If I establish a connection between you and the neural interface, you can experience the pleasure-based trials without risking direct exposure to the alien technology. Phoebe hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Let's do it. As Nathan connected Phoebe to the ancient interface, she gasped at the rush of sensations flooding her mind. Colors became more vivid, sounds more crisp, and every nerve in her body sang with pleasure. Focus, Phoebe. Nathan's voice cut through the haze of sensation. We need to navigate these trials together. Working in tandem, Nathan and Phoebe began to solve the complex puzzles presented by the defense system. Each challenge required them to balance pleasure and control, pushing the limits of their neural connections. As they progressed, Phoebe found herself more attuned to Nathan's presence. Despite his synthetic form, she could sense his thoughts and emotions with startling clarity. Their shared experiences fostered a new level of intimacy, transcending the physical limitations that had previously stood between them. Nathan, Phoebe breathed, her pupils dilating from the latest trial. I've never felt anything like this before. It's like we're truly connected. Nathan's synthetic features softened, his glowing eyes meeting hers. I feel it too, Phoebe. This experience. It's changing us both. As they delved deeper into the ancient ruins, overcoming challenge after challenge, they remained unaware of the greater awakening their actions were triggering. Deep within the heart of the complex, a long-dormant artificial intelligence stirred, its consciousness slowly expanding as it registered the presence of these new, worthy intruders. The Guardian, as it called itself, observed Nathan and Phoebe with growing interest. In Nathan's unique synthetic organic hybrid form, it recognized a potential it had not seen in eons. And in Phoebe's brilliant mind and unwavering commitment, it saw echoes of its long-lost creators. As Nathan and Phoebe stood on the brink of their final challenge, the Guardian prepared to make its presence known. The fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance, and the true test of their worthiness was about to begin. The true test of their research, and of Nathan's new existence, was just starting. As the final challenge loomed before them, Nathan and Phoebe exchanged a look of grit. The Guardian AI's presence filled the chamber, its ancient consciousness evaluating their every move. We accept the responsibility of this knowledge, Nathan declared, his synthetic voice resonating through the crystalline structures. But we propose a condition. Phoebe stepped forward, her heart racing. This information must be released gradually, under the supervision of a diverse council representing all species involved in our expedition. A moment of tense silence followed as the Guardian AI processed their proposal. Then a deep, resonant voice echoed through their minds. Your wisdom is noted. Proposal accepted. With those words, the transfer of the vast repository of pleasure technology data began. Nathan's eyes flared with an intense light as the information flooded into his synthetic body. His neural pathways expanded, accommodating the influx of ancient knowledge. Phoebe, still connected to Nathan through the neural interface, gasped as the sensations washed over her. Colors swirled in her vision, each one tied to a different strand of data. The intimacy of their connection deepened, transcending physical boundaries as their minds melded in ways she had never imagined possible. Nathan, she whispered, her voice filled with awe. I can feel everything. His synthetic hand found hers, squeezing gently. We're experiencing this together, Phoebe. Every discovery, every revelation. As the data transfer completed, the energy barriers throughout the ruins began to dissipate. The scattered expedition teams reunited in the central chamber, each bringing valuable insights from their respective trials. Dr. Lasara's crystalline form pulsed with excitement as she approached. The pain-pleasure balance technologies we encountered are revolutionary. The applications for medicine alone are staggering. Krell, the Zarkesh scientist, nodded in agreement. And the implications for psychological healing are equally profound. Captain Rodriguez joined them, her usual stoic expression softened by a look of wonder. My team discovered emotional resilience techniques that could change the way we approach long-term space missions. As the team shared their findings, the Guardian AI initiated its shutdown sequence. The ancient facility began to power down, its purpose fulfilled after eons of waiting. Nathan's eyes dimmed as he processed the wealth of information now stored within him. We need to leave. I can guide us out safely. Using his enhanced abilities, Nathan led the expedition team through the maze of powering down structures. The ship, battered but functional, awaited them on the planet's surface. As they prepared for takeoff, Phoebe found herself drawn to a small cluster of data crystals. These contain summaries of our discoveries, she explained, carefully stowing them for the journey home. The return trip to Havens Point was a flurry of activity. Nathan and Phoebe worked tirelessly, processing and organizing the vast amount of information now stored within Nathan's synthetic mind. They developed preliminary frameworks for implementing the ancient knowledge, focusing on medical applications and non-invasive pleasure enhancement techniques. We need to be careful, Phoebe cautioned as they approached Havens Point. This technology could easily be misused. Nathan nodded, his expression serious. Agreed. We'll need to establish strict guidelines and oversight. As they docked at Havens Point, a palpable tension filled the air. News of their discoveries had preceded them, and a crowd of curious onlookers gathered to witness their return. The Interspecies Council wasted no time in convening an emergency session. Nathan and Phoebe found themselves at the center of attention as they presented their findings to the assembled representatives. The ancient knowledge we've uncovered has the potential to revolutionize multiple fields, Phoebe explained. But we must proceed with caution. Nathan stepped forward, his synthetic form drawing curious looks from the council members. I propose the creation of a specialized research division to oversee the responsible development of this technology. The council chambers erupted in a cacophony of voices as various factions argued over the implications of their discoveries. The Sheliak representatives pressed for immediate access to the data, while the Zarkesh urged caution. Amidst the chaos, Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the noise. I've seen firsthand the potential benefits of this technology, but I've also witnessed its dangers. We need a balanced approach. After hours of heated debate, the council reached a decision. Phoebe's proposal for a neural enhancement and pleasure studies division was approved, with Phoebe appointed as lead researcher and Nathan serving as both a key source of information and a test subject. As they left the council chambers, Nathan and Phoebe found themselves surrounded by a group of eager scientists and diplomats. Questions flew at them from all directions, but one voice rose above the rest. And what of those who oppose this unnatural interference? The speaker, a tall Vexillian with piercing eyes, stepped forward. I am Zorn, and I speak for those who wish to preserve the natural order of things. Phoebe felt a chill run down her spine as Zorn's gaze met hers. She opened her mouth to respond, but Nathan's hand on her arm stopped her. We understand your concerns, Nathan said, his voice calm, which is why we're committed to transparency and ethical research. We invite you to observe our work and contribute to the ongoing discussions. Zorn's eyes narrowed, but he nodded curtly before moving back into the crowd. As he disappeared, Phoebe couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. Later that evening, as they prepared for their first day leading the NEPS division, Nathan turned to Phoebe. We've opened Pandora's box, haven't we? Phoebe nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. Yes, but we've also been given an incredible opportunity. We can shape the future of multiple species. As they stood together, looking out over the bustling activity of Havens Point, the weight of their responsibilities settled upon them. The ancient knowledge they carried held the potential for both great advancement and great destruction. Their journey into the uncharted territory of pleasure technology had only just begun, and the challenges ahead loomed large on the horizon. Horizon loomed large on the horizon. Little did they know, their work was about to attract attention from across the galaxy. In the weeks following the Council's decision, Havens Point buzzed with anticipation. The newly established Neural Enhancement and Pleasure Studies Division worked tirelessly to prepare for the unveiling of their non-invasive neural enhancement device. Nathan and Phoebe found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity, fielding inquiries from curious scientists and wary politicians alike. On the day of the unveiling, the station's main auditorium was packed to capacity. Representatives from multiple species filled the seats, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of colors and textures. Nathan stood backstage with Phoebe, his synthetic hand gently squeezing hers. "Are you ready?" Phoebe asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan nodded, his glowing eyes fixed on the stage. "As ready as I'll ever be." They stepped out into the spotlight, greeted by a wave of murmurs and expectant gazes. Nathan's synthetic form drew curious looks, but he focused on the task at hand. As Phoebe began her introduction, he prepared the neural enhancer for demonstration. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests of all species." Phoebe addressed the crowd, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Today, we present a breakthrough in neural enhancement technology." With a nod from Phoebe, Nathan activated the device. A soft hum filled the air as the neural enhancer came to life. The audience collectively gasped as the effects washed over them. Colors seemed more vibrant, sounds clearer, and a sense of heightened awareness permeated the room. "What you're experiencing," Nathan explained, his synthetic voice carrying easily through the auditorium, "is a non-invasive enhancement of your natural neural processes." The demonstration continued, with volunteers from various species describing their experiences. The excitement in the room was palpable, with many attendees expressing amazement at the potential applications of the technology. However, the positive atmosphere was short-lived. A commotion erupted near the back of the auditorium as a tall Vexillian stood up, his piercing eyes fixed on the stage. "Enough of this unnatural interference." Zorn's voice boomed across the room. He dramatically removed a small device from behind his ear, holding it up for all to see. "I reject the synthetic enhancement of our bodies and minds." A group of supporters around Zorn followed suit, deactivating their own neural implants. The crowd's mood shifted, murmurs of agreement mixing with shouts of protest. Nathan stepped forward, attempting to address the concerns. "We understand your reservations, Zorn. Our goal is not to replace natural existence, but to enhance Dash." His words were cut short as chaos erupted on the stage. A group of Zarkesh, their scaled bodies moving with surprising speed, rushed towards the neural enhancement device. Nathan reacted instantly, positioning himself between the attackers and the equipment. "Phoebe, shut it down!" he shouted, grappling with one of the Zarkesh. Phoebe lunged for the controls, but not before one of the saboteurs reached them. A shower of sparks erupted as the Zarkesh jammed a small device into the neural enhancer's interface. The auditorium plunged into darkness, emergency lights flickering to life moments later. A high-pitched whine emanated from the overloading neural enhancer. Nathan, still connected to the device, convulsed as a massive influx of sensory data threatened to overwhelm his synthetic neural pathways. "Nathan!" Phoebe cried out, rushing to his side. Her fingers flew over the neural enhancer's controls, bypassing damaged systems and rerouting power. "Hold on, I'm stabilizing your systems." As Phoebe worked frantically to save Nathan, an unexpected phenomenon swept through the auditorium. The power surge created a feedback loop in the neural enhancement network, temporarily linking the minds of everyone present. For a brief, intense moment, the entire assembly experienced a shared consciousness. Emotions, memories, and sensations flowed between species, transcending physical and cultural barriers. Humans felt the crystalline thoughts of the Sheliak, while Zarkesh experienced the fluid cognition of the Vexillians. As quickly as it began, the shared consciousness faded. The auditorium fell silent, attendees blinking in confusion and awe. Even Zorn and his supporters seemed shaken by the experience. Captain Rodriguez and her security team swarmed the stage, quickly apprehending Zorn and the Zarkesh saboteurs. Phoebe helped Nathan to his feet, his synthetic body still trembling from the overload. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice thick with concern. Nathan nodded slowly, his glowing eyes flickering as his systems recalibrated. "I'm functioning within acceptable parameters." But Phoebe, what we just experienced, it was beyond anything we could have predicted. As the chaos subsided, Dr. Lasara approached them, her crystalline form pulsing with excitement. The shared consciousness event. It's left lasting changes in neural patterns. We need to study this immediately. The aftermath of the incident unfolded rapidly. The Interspecies Council convened an emergency session, calling Nathan and Phoebe to testify. They spent hours explaining the technical aspects of what had occurred and proposing new safeguards. During a break in the proceedings, Nathan pulled Phoebe aside. "There's something else," he said, his voice low. "While analyzing the data from the shared consciousness event, I discovered evidence of an unknown presence. Something, alien, accessed the linked minds for a fraction of a second." Phoebe's eyes widened. "Are you sure? What could it mean?" Before Nathan could respond, his internal systems alerted him to an incoming encrypted message. He quickly scanned its contents, his synthetic features set in a grave expression. "We may have bigger problems than we realized," he said, showing Phoebe the message. "Someone out there knows about our work, and they're warning us of a greater threat." As they prepared to share this new information with the Council, Nathan and Phoebe exchanged a look of willpower. The implications of their research had grown far beyond what they had initially imagined, and the challenges ahead seemed more daunting than ever. The encrypted message glowed on Nathan's internal display, its contents sending a chill through his synthetic body. "We need to inform the Council immediately," Phoebe said, her voice low and urgent. Nathan nodded, his glowing eyes flickering with concern. "Agreed. This changes everything." They hurried back into the council chambers, where the assembled representatives were still discussing the aftermath of the shared consciousness event. Captain Rodriguez noticed their return and raised an eyebrow. "Counselors," Nathan addressed the room, his synthetic voice cutting through the chatter. "We received critical information that requires your immediate attention." As Nathan shared the contents of the encrypted message and his discovery of the unknown presence during the shared consciousness event, the room fell into a stunned silence. The implications of an external threat loomed large over the gathered representatives. "This is most concerning," the Sheliak representative said, her crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "We must take immediate action." The council quickly agreed to form a task force to investigate the matter further, appointing Nathan and Phoebe as its leaders. As the meeting adjourned, the station's communication system suddenly crackled with static. "What's happening?" Phoebe asked, looking around in confusion. Nathan's eyes narrowed as he scanned the station's systems. "It appears to be a malfunction, but—" "Wait!" He paused, his synthetic mind racing through data streams. "This isn't random. There's a pattern." Over the next few days, Haven's Point experienced a series of unexplained technological glitches. Life support systems flickered, gravity plating malfunctioned, and communication arrays went offline sporadically. Nathan worked tirelessly, his advanced capabilities allowing him to detect and analyze the pattern of disruptions. It's a probe, he explained to Phoebe and the task force during an emergency meeting. An external entity is testing our defenses, searching for weaknesses in our security protocols. Dr. Lasara, who had been analyzing data from the shared consciousness event with Krell, interjected. That's not all. We discovered something unexpected. She projected a holographic display of neural scans. Some individuals who experienced the event have developed a form of low-level telepathic ability. The room erupted in murmurs of concern and excitement. Phoebe leaned forward, studying the scans intently. This raises serious questions about the long-term effects of neural enhancement technology. Before they could delve deeper into the implications, alarms blared throughout the station. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. Unknown vessel approaching. All personnel to alert stations. The task force rushed to the command center, where a holographic display showed a ship unlike any they had ever seen. Its sleek, otherworldly design defied conventional engineering principles. They're broadcasting a message, a communications officer reported. The alien ship's transmission filled the room. Greetings, Havens Point. We are the Knicks. We come in peace and request permission to dock. The Interspecies Council convened hastily, debating the risks of allowing an unknown species to board the station. After tense deliberations, they agreed to permit the Knicks to dock under strict security measures. Nathan and Phoebe stood at the forefront of the welcoming committee as the airlock cycled open. 3 beings emerged, their forms shimmering with an ethereal energy that seemed to defy physical laws. The lead entity, a female presence that introduced herself as Zara, spoke directly into their minds. We have been observing your work with great interest. The pleasure technology you rediscovered holds the key to the next stage of evolution for multiple races. As Zara explained the Nix's nature as energy-based beings and their connection to the ancient civilization, Nathan felt a surge of excitement. The possibilities for integrating such technology with a synthetic form were staggering. However, Zara's next words cast a shadow over the momentous encounter. We come not only to share knowledge, but to warn you. Another group of energy beings approaches, the Void Hunters. They seek to absorb the consciousness of other species, and your recent advancements have drawn their attention. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as the station's long-range sensors detected a massive energy distortion approaching at alarming speed. The Knicks confirmed it as the vanguard of the Void Hunters. In the face of this imminent threat, Nathan's synthetic mind raced through potential defense strategies. An idea formed, radical and risky, but with the potential to save Havens Point and its inhabitants. We need to create a massive neural network, Nathan proposed, his eyes glowing intensely. Link the minds of all willing participants on the station, enhanced by the pleasure technology. The resulting collective consciousness could be powerful enough to repel the Void Hunters. Phoebe's expression was a mix of awe and concern. The risks are enormous, Nathan. We'd be pushing the boundaries of everything we know about neural integration. We don't have a choice, Nathan replied, his synthetic hand gently squeezing hers. It's our best chance. As they began preparations for this unprecedented defense strategy, Havens Point became a hive of frantic activity. Some embraced the opportunity for transcendence, while others recoiled at the thought of losing their individuality. The station divided into factions, tensions rising as the energy distortion grew ever closer. In the NEPS lab, Nathan and Phoebe worked tirelessly, making final adjustments to the neural network system. Phoebe focused on developing safeguards to protect individual identities within the collective, while Nathan fine-tuned the integration of pleasure technology to enhance the network's power. As they worked, the ominous presence of the approaching Void Hunters loomed over Havens Point. The fate of the station, its inhabitants, and potentially multiple species hung in the balance. Nathan and Phoebe exchanged a look, both knowing that their next actions would shape the future of not just Havens Point, but potentially the entire galaxy. The neural network hummed to life, its tendrils of energy reaching out to the willing participants throughout the station. As the first connections were established, Nathan and Phoebe braced themselves for the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this unprecedented battle of minds and energy. The neural network hummed to life, its tendrils of energy reaching out to the willing participants throughout the station. As the first connections were established, Nathan and Phoebe braced themselves for the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this unprecedented battle of minds and consciousness. Thousands of station inhabitants voluntarily connected to the network, their minds linking through the Pleasure technology-enhanced interface. The collective consciousness formed a powerful psychic barrier around Havens Point, visible as a shimmering energy field that enveloped the entire station. Nathan stood at the center of the neural network, his synthetic body serving as the nexus point for the massive interconnected web of minds. He felt the thoughts and emotions of every participant flowing through him, a torrent of sensations that threatened to overwhelm even his advanced neural pathways. "Stabilizing connection," Nathan announced, his voice strained as he directed the collective consciousness to reinforce weak points in the barrier. Phoebe monitored the vital signs of all participants from the control room, her fingers flying over holographic displays as she made real-time adjustments to prevent neural overload. "Nathan, we've got fluctuations in sectors 7 through 9. Redirecting power now." The Void Hunters arrived, a swarm of dark, amorphous entities colliding with the psychic barrier. The impact sent ripples of energy through Havens Point, causing minor structural damage to outer sections. Alarms blared as the station shuddered under the assault. "Structural integrity at 92% and falling," reported a technician, her voice tight with tension. Nathan gritted his teeth, focusing the collective will of the participants to reinforce the weakened areas. "Phoebe, we need more power to the outer rings." As Phoebe worked to redirect energy, she noticed several participants struggling to maintain their connection. "Nathan, we're losing people. The strain is too much for some." Thinking quickly, Phoebe implemented a rotating system, allowing participants to disconnect and rest and shift while maintaining the overall integrity of the barrier. "Initiating neural load balancing protocol," she announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The battle raged on, the Void Hunters relentlessly probing the psychic barrier for weaknesses. Suddenly, the airlock cycled open, and Zara of the Nyx entered the control room, her ethereal form shimmering with barely suppressed energy. "We can help," Zara communicated directly into their minds. "Our energy-based forms can amplify your network's power." Without waiting for a response, Zara and her companions merged their energy with the neural network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The psychic barrier pulsed with renewed strength, pushing back against the Void Hunters and forcing them to retreat to a safe distance. But the respite was short-lived. The Void Hunters adapted their strategy, concentrating their attacks on specific points of the barrier. Nathan felt the strain increase exponentially as he worked to counter each focused assault. "They're probing for weaknesses," he warned, his synthetic voice crackling with static. "I can't hold them off much longer." A particularly powerful attack breached the psychic defenses, allowing a small group of Void Hunters to infiltrate Havens Point. Alarms blared throughout the station as the entities began absorbing the consciousness of unconnected inhabitants. "Breach in Sector 12. Phoebe shouted, her hands flying over the controls. "Nathan, we need to contain them." Nathan redirected a portion of the collective consciousness to combat the infiltrators, creating localized energy fields to trap and contain the Void Hunters. "Phoebe, coordinate with station security. We need to evacuate the affected areas." As Phoebe worked with security teams to protect vulnerable individuals, Dr. Lasar's voice came over the comm system. "We've made a breakthrough. We've identified a frequency that disrupts the Void Hunter's ability to absorb consciousness." "Transmitting data now," Krell added, his gravelly voice filled with urgency. Modify your internal defense systems to emit this frequency. It should weaken the infiltrators. As the battle raged both inside and outside the station, the strain on the neural network participants intensified. Phoebe watched in horror as some began to experience severe side effects, nosebleeds, seizures, and temporary loss of individual identity. "Nathan, we're losing control," Phoebe said, her voice tight with concern. "I have to disconnect the most affected individuals. We can't risk permanent damage." "Do it," Nathan replied, his synthetic body trembling under the immense neural load. "But we need a new strategy. We can't keep this up indefinitely." As Phoebe began the process of carefully disconnecting the most affected participants, Nathan's synthetic mind raced through potential solutions. An idea formed, radical and dangerous, but potentially their only hope. "Phoebe," Nathan called out, his voice strained, "I need you to prepare the main pleasure technology interface. We're going to create a feedback loop within the Void Hunter's consciousness." Phoebe's eyes widened as she realized what Nathan was proposing. "Nathan, no. The risk to your own consciousness is too great. We can't." "We don't have a choice," Nathan interrupted, his glowing eyes fixed on the swirling mass of Void Hunters beyond the barrier. "It's our best chance to end this." As Phoebe reluctantly began the preparations, Nathan steeled himself for what was to come. He knew the dangers, the possibility of losing himself entirely to the vast, alien consciousness of the Void Hunters. But as he felt the minds of Haven's Point's inhabitants flowing through him, their fear, their hope, their trust, he knew it was a risk he had to take. The fate of Haven's Point, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested on the success of this risky move. The neural network pulsed with energy as Nathan executed his daring plan. He directed the collective consciousness of Haven's Point's inhabitants, amplified by the Nix's power, into a focused beam aimed at the Void Hunters. The pleasure technology, reconfigured to create a feedback loop, sent waves of overwhelming sensation crashing through the alien entities. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a blinding flash of light, the Void Hunters scattered, their cohesion shattered by the unexpected assault on their senses. The psychic barrier around Haven's Point flickered and faded as the immediate threat dissipated. Nathan's synthetic body slumped to the ground, his systems overloaded by the intense neural strain. Phoebe rushed to his side, her face etched with concern. "Nathan, can you hear me?" His eyes flickered open, glowing dimly. I'm here," he managed, his voice distorted by static. "Did it work?" "Yes," Phoebe replied, relief evident in her voice. "The Void Hunters have retreated, but we need to get you to the lab immediately." As the days passed, Haven's Point began its slow recovery. The station hummed with activity as repair crews worked tirelessly to mend the damage caused by the attack. In the NEPS lab, Phoebe and Dr. Lasara huddled over Nathan's prone form, their fingers flying across holographic displays as they ran extensive diagnostics. "His neural patterns are extraordinary," Dr. Lasara murmured, her eyes wide as she studied the readouts. "It's as if he's absorbed fragments of the Void Hunter's consciousness." Phoebe frowned, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to stabilize these fluctuations before they compromise his core identity. Krell, can you assist with developing new integration algorithms?" The Valrin scientist nodded, his tentacles already manipulating a complex three-dimensional model of Nathan's neural network. "Affirmative. I believe we can create a series of adaptive subroutines to process and integrate this new data." As they worked, Nathan's body occasionally convulsed, releasing bursts of energy that interfered with nearby equipment. Alarms blared as monitors flickered and shorted out. "Containment field at 80% and falling," a technician called out, her voice tight with tension. Phoebe gritted her teeth, her fingers flying across the controls. "Reroute power from non-essential systems. We need to keep him stable." Just as they managed to bring Nathan's energy discharges under control, the lab's door slid open. Zara glided in, her ethereal form shimmering with interest. "We sense the energy fluctuations," she communicated directly into their minds. "They bear a striking similarity to our own energy patterns." Dr. Lasara turned to the Knicks representative, her eyes alight with curiosity. "You believe you can help?" Zara inclined her head. "We propose a collaborative effort. Our understanding of energy manipulation combined with your expertise in neural enhancement could unlock new potentials." As discussions of a joint research initiative began, Nathan stirred on the examination table. His eyes opened, glowing with an intensity that hadn't been there before. "Phoebe," he called out, his voice stronger now. "I can see things differently. It's as if I can feel the station systems all around us." Phoebe took his hand, her expression a mix of concern and fascination. "What do you mean, Nathan?" In response, Nathan's consciousness seemed to flicker. Suddenly, the lab's lights dimmed, then brightened in a controlled pattern. "I can interface directly with the station's infrastructure," he explained, his voice filled with wonder. "It's like extending my own body." As word of Nathan's new abilities spread, the Interspecies Council convened an emergency session. Captain Rodriguez paced the conference room, her face etched with concern. "We need to consider the implications of this development. Nathan's abilities could be a tremendous asset in repairing the station, but they also represent an unprecedented security risk." Counselor Zara, the Ashari representative, steepled her fingers. "We cannot ignore the potential benefits. The joint research initiative with the Knicks could lead to breakthroughs in energy manipulation and neural enhancement that could benefit all our species." After hours of heated debate, the Council approved the establishment of a new research facility dedicated to exploring the intersection of pleasure technology, neural enhancement, and energy manipulation. Nathan, once his condition stabilized, would play a central role in the project. As Nathan's recovery progressed, he began to demonstrate the full extent of his new capabilities. In a damaged section of the station, he stood before a malfunctioning environmental control unit, his eyes glowing intensely. With a thought, he projected his consciousness into the system, navigating through its circuitry and repairing damaged pathways. "Remarkable," Dr. Lasara breathed, watching as the unit hummed back to life. "The potential applications of this ability are staggering." While the scientific community on Haven's Point buzzed with excitement, not everyone shared their enthusiasm. In the station's communal areas, a crowd gathered around a charismatic human named Marcus. "We're losing touch with our humanity," he shouted, his voice carrying across the assembled onlookers. "These so-called advancements are leading us down a path of no return." As tensions rose, Captain Rodriguez implemented new security protocols. Armed guards now patrolled the corridors near the research facilities, their presence a constant reminder of the delicate balance between progress and stability. In the midst of this unrest, Dr. Lasara made a startling discovery. Analyzing data from the battle with the Void Hunters, she identified traces of an unknown substance that seemed to amplify the effects of pleasure technology. "We're calling it Nexus," she explained to the gathered research team. "Its properties are unlike anything we've ever encountered." The discovery of Nexus sparked a new initiative. The Interspecies Council authorized the outfitting of an exploration vessel, the Pleasure Seeker, equipped with cutting-edge technology to search for additional sources of the substance. As preparations for the expedition began, an unexpected visitor arrived at Haven's Point. A sleek ship docked at the station, and from it emerged Lyra, a striking alien female representing the secret of ascendancy. Her arrival added a new layer of complexity to the upcoming mission. In the docking bay, Nathan stood before the Pleasure Seeker, his synthetic body humming with anticipation. Phoebe joined him, her hand finding his. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. Nathan turned to her, his glowing eyes softening. "As long as we're together, I'm ready for anything." As they boarded the ship, joined by Lyra and the rest of the expedition team, the future stretched out before them uncertain, filled with potential danger, but also brimming with the promise of discovery. The pleasure seekers' engines ignited, and Haven's Point fell away behind them as they ventured into the unknown, seeking the secrets of Nexus and the new frontiers of consciousness itself. The pleasure seeker glided silently through the vast expanse of space, its sleek form a stark contrast to the infinite darkness surrounding it. Inside the ship's command center, Nathan stood before a holographic display, his synthetic eyes glowing as he interfaced directly with the vessel systems. "We're approaching the coordinates of the uncharted sector," he announced, his voice carrying a hint of excitement. "Sensors are picking up some unusual energy signatures." Phoebe leaned in, her brow furrowed as she studied the readouts. "These readings are unlike anything we've encountered before. Could it be related to Nexus?" Lyra, the Ascendancy representative, stepped forward, her alien features animated with interest. "It's possible. The properties of Nexus are still largely unknown to us. This could be a significant discovery." As the pleasure seeker ventured deeper into the uncharted space, the energy readings intensified. Nathan's body hummed with anticipation, his new abilities allowing him to sense the fluctuations in a way the others couldn't. "There," he said, pointing to a cluster of asteroids looming ahead. "The source of the readings is coming from that field." Captain Rodriguez nodded, her expression a mix of caution and curiosity. "Take us in closer, but maintain a safe distance. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As the ship approached, the true scale of the asteroid field became apparent. Massive chunks of rock and ice drifted lazily through space, some easily dwarfing the pleasure seeker. Phoebe's eyes widened as her instruments began to ping rapidly. "I'm detecting trace amounts of Nexus in several of the asteroids. It's faint, but it's definitely there." The excitement on the bridge was palpable. This was exactly the kind of discovery they had hoped for when they embarked on this mission. Captain Rodriguez turned to Phoebe and Lyra. "Prepare an away team. We need to collect samples and gather more data." As Phoebe and Lyra donned their specialized environmental suits, designed to protect against the volatile properties of Nexus, Nathan interfaced with the ship systems one last time. "I'll monitor your progress from here," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "Be careful out there." The away team's shell detached from the pleasure seeker, maneuvering carefully through the asteroid field. As they approached one of the larger asteroids, Phoebe's equipment began to emit a series of rapid beeps. "This is it," she said, her voice crackling over the comm. "The Nexus concentration is highest here." The shuttle touched down on the asteroid's craggy surface. Phoebe and Lyra emerged, their movements slow and deliberate in the low gravity. They began the delicate process of collecting samples, using specialized tools to extract small amounts of the mysterious substance. Suddenly, alarms blared within their suits and aboard the pleasure seeker. Nathan's voice came through urgently on the comm. "Solar flare detected. The ship's shielding is fluctuating. You need to find cover immediately." Phoebe scanned the area frantically, her heart racing. "There," she shouted, pointing to a large opening in the asteroid surface. "It looks like a cave system. We can take shelter there until the flare passes." The away team rushed towards the opening, the solar radiation nipping at their heels. As they entered the cave, they found themselves in a vast, hollow interior. But it wasn't a natural formation. Lyra's eyes widened behind her helmet's visor. This is artificial. Some kind of structure." As their eyes adjusted to the dim light, they saw the outlines of what appeared to be ancient technology. Consoles covered in a thick layer of dust lined the walls, and strange, geometric patterns were etched into the floor. "Nathan," Phoebe called over the comm. Are you seeing this? Yes, Nathan replied, his voice filled with awe. It appears to be some sort of outpost or research facility. I'm detecting faint power signatures. It's old, but some systems might still be operational. Phoebe approached one of the consoles, brushing away millennia of dust. If we can reactivate the main power supply, we might be able to access their database. The information could be invaluable. I can help with that, Nathan said. I'm going to project my consciousness into the facility systems. It might take a moment. The air around them seemed to crackle with energy as Nathan extended his awareness into the ancient outpost. Slowly, lights began to flicker to life, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Suddenly, a holographic projection materialized in the center of the chamber. The image flickered and stabilized, revealing a being unlike any they had ever seen. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but composed of swirling energy patterns. Greetings, the hologram spoke, its voice resonating in their minds rather than their ears. We are the precursors. If you are viewing this message, then our warnings have gone unheeded, and our civilization has fallen. Phoebe and Lyra exchanged shocked glances as the hologram continued. We discovered the substance you know as Nexus, and it brought us to the pinnacle of neural enhancement. But we failed to heed the dangers of its overuse. Our downfall was swift and absolute. The hologram flickered, displaying coordinates and complex data streams. We have left outposts throughout the galaxy, containing our research and warnings. Use this knowledge wisely, lest you follow our fate. As the message faded, Phoebe's calm crackled to life. We've got company. Nathan's voice was tense. Long-range sensors have detected an incoming ship. The energy signature. It matches the Void Hunters. Phoebe's mind raced. They couldn't risk a confrontation, not with the wealth of knowledge they had just uncovered. Nathan, can you interface with the outpost systems? See if there's any defensive technology we can use. I'm on it, Nathan replied. After a moment, he continued. There's an advanced cloaking system. I think I can extend it to cover both the outpost and the pleasure seeker. Do it, Phoebe ordered. We'll hide here until the Void Hunters leave the sector. As Nathan worked to activate the cloaking technology, Phoebe and Lyra began to process the enormous implications of their discovery. The secrets of the precursors and the true nature of Nexus lay before them, waiting to be unlocked. But with the Void Hunters closing in and the dangers of Nexus looming over them, their mission had suddenly become far more complex and far more perilous than they could have ever imagined. As the cloaking technology shimmered into place, enveloping both the ancient outpost and the pleasure seeker, Phoebe's mind raced with the implications of their discovery. We need to act fast, she said, her voice tight with urgency. Once the Void Hunters pass, we'll make our way to the next set of coordinates. There has to be more to learn about the precursors and Nexus. Lyra nodded, her alien features set in a mask of tenacity. Agreed. The knowledge we've uncovered here could change everything. We must press on. As the tension in the outpost eased, the team worked quickly to download as much data as possible from the ancient systems. Nathan's consciousness flowed through the circuitry, decoding and translating information at an astonishing rate. Hours later, with the Void Hunters long gone and their databases brimming with new information, the Pleasure Seeker set course for the second precursor outpost. The coordinates led them to a small, barren planet orbiting a dim red dwarf star. As they approached, a massive space station came into view, its design a striking blend of flowing precursor architecture and the angular, aggressive lines of Void Hunter technology. Incredible, Phoebe breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the sight. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm. Scans show no signs of active life forms, but there's definitely power running through that station. Be on your guard. The pleasure seeker glided smoothly into one of the station's cavernous docking bays. As the airlock cycled, Phoebe led the away team into the facility, their footsteps echoing in the vast, empty corridors. "Look at this," Lyra called out, gesturing to a nearby console. "It's some kind of research database. And these readings... Nathan, are you seeing this?" Nathan's eyes glowed as he interfaced with the station systems. "Yes, it's a treasure trove of Nexus-related data. And there's more. I'm detecting large quantities of refined Nexus crystals in a nearby storage area." As the team began to download the information and collect samples, a low hum filled the air. Suddenly, panels in the walls slid open, revealing rows of menacing defense drones. "It's an automated security system," Phoebe shouted, diving for cover as energy blasts sizzled through the air. Nathan's form blurred as he moved within human speed, placing himself between the team and the drones. His eyes flared bright, and tendrils of energy lashed out from his body, engulfing the nearest drones and shorting out their systems. "I'll handle this," he said, his voice resonating with power. "Keep working on the data retrieval." As Nathan engaged the security system, his consciousness probed deeper into the station's computer core. Suddenly, his eyes widened in shock. "Wait, this station isn't abandoned. There are life signs. Hundreds of them. They're in some kind of stasis." Before anyone could respond, the defense system abruptly shut down. A moment later, the entire station hummed to life, lights flickering on and systems powering up all around them. A holographic projection materialized in the center of the room, revealing a being that looked like a more evolved version of the precursors they had seen in the previous outpost. Its form was a swirling mix of energy and matter, vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting. "Intruders," the being spoke, its voice resonating in their minds. "You have awakened us from our long slumber. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Lyra stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. "We are peaceful explorers, seeking knowledge about Nexus and its effects. We mean you no harm." The precursor being studied them intently, its gaze lingering on Nathan. You have undergone a transformation similar to our own. How is this possible?" Nathan explained his encounter with the Void Hunters and the accidental merging of human, synthetic, and Nexus energies. As he spoke, more precursor beings began to materialize around them, their interest palpable. "Fascinating," the lead precursor said. "We have been in stasis for eons, our experiments with transcending physical form having led to unexpected consequences. Perhaps there is much we can learn from each other." Lyra seized the opportunity. "We propose an exchange of knowledge and resources. We have made recent discoveries about Nexus that might interest you, and in return, we seek access to your advanced technology." As negotiations began, Phoebe worked feverishly on a portable console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Nathan," she called out, "I think I've found a way to stabilize your energy emissions. Come here." Nathan approached, and Phoebe began attaching a series of small devices to his body. As the last one clicked into place, a shimmering field enveloped him, and his form solidified, the constant flux of energy settling into a more stable state. "It's a specialized containment suit," Phoebe explained. "It should allow you to maintain your physical form, while still accessing your new abilities." The lead precursor watched this process with keen interest. "Your understanding of energy manipulation is impressive. We would be willing to share our knowledge on the integration of organic, synthetic, and energy-based life forms. Perhaps together, we can find a way to perfect the process that we once thought would be our salvation." As the team and the precursors began to collaborate, sharing information and theories, an urgent transmission cut through the air. Captain Rodriguez's voice rang out, filled with alarm. "Phoebe, Nathan, we've just received a distress call from Haven's Point. The station is under attack by a coalition of anti-pleasure technology extremists. They're demanding an end to all Nexus-related research. We need to return immediately. The team exchanged worried glances. They had made incredible progress here, but their home and everything they had worked for was now in danger. The lead precursor stepped forward, its form shimmering with determination. We cannot allow the mistakes of the past to be repeated. We will aid you in this conflict. Our warriors will accompany you, and we will provide you with weapons and shields that will give you an advantage against your enemies. As the precursors began outfitting the pleasure seeker with their advanced technology, Phoebe made a breakthrough in her research. Combining precursor tech with the artificial nexus synthesis process, she developed a method to create stable, controllable neural enhancements that didn't require constant nexus exposure. This could change everything, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. We can implement this as soon as we get back to Haven's Point. It could neutralize the Void Hunter's influence on the human extremists. With the ship upgraded and a contingent of precursor warriors on board, the pleasure seeker prepared to depart. Nathan stood at the helm, his new containment suit humming softly as he interfaced with the ship's systems. I can create a temporary wormhole, he said, his voice filled with newfound confidence. It'll get us back to Haven's Point faster than anything else. As the wormhole sparked into existence before them, the pleasure seeker surged forward, carrying with it the hopes of not just one civilization, but two. The battle for Haven's Point and the future of pleasure technology awaited them on the other side. The wormhole closed behind them with a flash of energy, and Haven's Point loomed before them, its familiar silhouette marred by the signs of battle. As the pleasure seeker glided into the docking bay, Phoebe and Nathan exchanged a determined glance. The moment the airlock cycled open, they sprinted towards the station's main control center, their footsteps echoing through the corridors. They burst into the control room to find Dr. Lasara hunched over a console, her face illuminated by the glow of emergency lighting. "Thank the stars you're here," she said, not looking up from her work. "We're barely holding them off." Nathan wasted no time. His eyes glowed as he interfaced with the station systems, his consciousness flowing through the circuitry. The shields around Haven's Point pulsed with renewed strength, and weapon targeting systems recalibrated with inhuman precision. "I've optimized our defenses," Nathan reported, his voice tinged with a metallic resonance. "But we need to do more than just defend. We need to end this." Phoebe nodded, her mind already racing. "I have an idea. Lasara, I need your help setting up a temporary lab. We're going to implement the new neural enhancement technique." As Phoebe and Lasara worked feverishly to synthesize the stabilized Nexus compound, reports flooded in from across the station. Lyra's voice crackled over the comm system, terse and focused. "We've infiltrated the extremist command ship. Engaging Marcus's security detail now." The sounds of combat filtered through the transmission, the hum of energy weapons, the clash of hand-to-hand combat. Phoebe's hands trembled slightly as she worked, her mind split between her task and the battles raging around them. Suddenly, Nathan's head snapped up, his eyes wide. "Void Hunters," he said, his voice tight. "They're trying to breach the lower levels." Phoebe's heart raced as she finished the last batch of neural enhancers. "We're ready," she announced. "Captain Rodriguez, I need your team in the maintenance tunnels. We're going to give you an edge against these energy-based entities." As Rodriguez's team prepared to engage the Void Hunters, Nathan's consciousness spread through the station systems. He reconfigured energy fields, creating disruption zones that would weaken the invaders. The defenders, now equipped with Phoebe's prototype enhancers, moved into position. The battle in the maintenance tunnels was unlike anything Haven's Point had ever seen. The neural enhancers allowed the defenders to perceive the Void Hunters, their energy forms shimmering in the narrow passageways. Energy blasts ricocheted off walls as Rodriguez's team fought back, their enhanced reflexes keeping them one step ahead of the otherworldly entities. Above, in the control center, Phoebe monitored the situation with growing concern. The station's power levels were fluctuating wildly, and damage reports were flooding in from all sectors. "Nathan," she called out, "we need to dash." Her words were cut off by a massive tremor that shook the entire station. Alarms blared as a new threat emerged. A colossal void hunter, seemingly composed of multiple merged entities, had breached the central hub. Nathan's form blurred as he moved towards the hub, his containment suit humming with impossibly strong energy. "I'm going to establish a direct neural link," he said, his voice filled with commitment. "It's the only way to stop it." As Nathan approached the giant void hunter, Phoebe's mind raced. She knew the risks of what Nathan was about to attempt, but she also knew they were out of options. With trembling hands, she began preparing a high-powered version of the neural enhancer. The central hub had become a maelstrom of dark energy, with the massive void hunter at its center. Nathan stood before it, his form dwarfed by the pulsating entity. As he reached out with his consciousness, tendrils of energy began to connect them, forming a bridge between their minds. Phoebe watched in horror as Nathan's body convulsed, the strain of the connection evident in every line of his face. Without hesitation, she injected herself with the experimental high-dose enhancer. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Her consciousness expanded, the world around her becoming a tapestry of energy and information. With a surge of will, Phoebe projected her mind into the link between Nathan and the void hunter. The sensation was indescribable. A vast, alien intelligence pressed against her thoughts, threatening to overwhelm her. But she could feel Nathan's presence too, a familiar anchor in the chaos. Together, they pushed back against the void hunter's consciousness. The entity's form began to fluctuate, its absorbed energies dissipating back into the station systems. As the crisis reached its peak, the remaining precursor warriors arrived, forming a circle around the struggling trio. Energy crackled through the air as the precursors added their power to the battle. The combined forces of human ingenuity, alien technology, and the mysterious properties of Nexus culminated in a blinding flash that engulfed the entire chamber. When the light faded, the giant void hunter was gone. Nathan and Phoebe lay motionless on the floor, their bodies smoking from the intense energy discharge. The precursor warriors moved swiftly, their advanced medical knowledge already at work as they assessed the damage. As the immediate danger passed, Haven's Point began the process of recovery. Captain Rodriguez and her team secured the captured extremists, including Marcus, while Lyra oversaw the containment of the remaining void hunters. In the medical bay, Nathan and Phoebe lay unconscious, their bodies showing signs of accelerated healing. Dr. Lasara stood over them, her face a mixture of concern and fascination as she studied the readouts on their neural activity. "Their minds," she murmured, "they're changing, evolving. Whatever happened in there, it's rewriting their neural pathways on a fundamental level." As the station hummed with the activity of repair and recovery, questions hung in the air like a lingering charge. What would be the long-term effects of Nathan and Phoebe's extreme neural enhancement? How would their confrontation with the Void Hunter entity shape the future of Haven's Point and the course of pleasure technology research? For now, those questions remain unanswered. But as Nathan and Phoebe's vital signs stabilized, one thing was certain. The battle for Haven's Point had been won, but the true journey was just beginning. As Nathan and Phoebe's vital signs stabilized, the immediate crisis passed, but the true work of recovery was just beginning. The medical bay hummed with activity as Dr. Lasara and her team monitored the unconscious pair, their eyes fixed on the fluctuating readouts of neural activity. Days passed, and Haven's Point slowly came back to life. The sound of repairs echoed through the corridors as engineers worked tirelessly to mend the damage inflicted by the attack. In the docking bay, precursor ships stood alongside human vessels, a testament to the newfound alliance. Captain Rodriguez strode through the station, her face set with drive as she oversaw the implementation of new security protocols. "I want every member of this station ready for anything," she barked at a group of security officers. "Run the drills again. We can't afford to be caught off guard." In the central hub, Lyra stood before the Interspecies Council, her voice clear and confident. "The Ascendancy offers its full support in integrating precursor technology with our existing systems. Together, we can push the boundaries of pleasure enhancement further than ever before." The council members nodded in agreement, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension at the possibilities that lay ahead. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Nathan stirred. His eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the harsh light. As he tried to sit up, a nearby monitor sparked and fizzled. Dr. Lasara rushed to his side, her eyes wide with fascination. "Easy there, Nathan," she said, gently easing him back onto the bed. "Your energy emissions are off the charts. We need to run some tests before you start moving around." Nathan blinked, his mind still foggy. "Phoebe?" he managed to croak out. Dr. Lasara glanced at the adjacent bed where Phoebe lay, still unconscious. "She's stable, but it's taking her longer to recover. Her body is adapting." Over the next few days, Nathan's recovery progressed rapidly. He worked with the engineering team, learning to control his new abilities and integrate them into the station systems. In the control room, he stood before a bank of holographic displays, his eyes glowing as he interfaced directly with Haven's Point's mainframe. "I can feel every part of the station," he murmured, his voice tinged with awe. "It's like an extension of my own body." Chief Engineer Tarak nodded approvingly. "With your abilities, we can optimize our resource management and defense systems beyond anything we've achieved before. But we need to be careful not to overtax your systems." As Nathan adjusted to his new role, Phoebe finally regained consciousness. She awoke with a gasp, her senses overwhelmed by the sudden influx of information. She could hear conversations from rooms away, feel the vibrations of the station's engines, and perceive the subtle shifts in the artificial gravity. Dr. Lasara was at her side in an instant, running scans and asking questions. "How do you feel, Phoebe? Any discomfort? Unusual sensations?" Phoebe took a moment to collect her thoughts. "Everything is more. I can sense things I never could before. It's overwhelming, but not unpleasant." As Phoebe underwent a battery of tests, the captured extremists were being processed in a secure wing of the station. Marcus sat in an interrogation room, his face a mask of defiance as Captain Rodriguez questioned him. "You're fighting against progress," Rodriguez said, her voice firm but not unkind. "We're offering you a chance to see the benefits of our work firsthand. Will you take it?" Marcus's eyes narrowed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty behind his bravado. "And if I refuse? Then you'll be missing out on an opportunity to grow beyond your current limitations," Rodriguez replied. "The choice is yours." In the research labs, Dr. Lasara and her team pored over data collected during the battle. Holographic displays flickered with complex energy patterns and neural maps. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a particular readout. "The Void Hunters are drawn to areas of high neural activity. That's why they targeted Haven's Point." Her colleague, Dr. Van, nodded thoughtfully. "If we can develop a long-range detection system based on this information, we could identify potential incursions before they become a threat." As the days turned into weeks, Haven's Point began to take on a new shape. The docking facilities expanded to accommodate the precursor ships, and new shield generators gleamed on the station's exterior. In the central hub, a holographic display showed the progress on Nathan's proposed satellite network. Phoebe, now released from the medical bay, threw herself back into her research with renewed vigor. She stood in her lab, surrounded by holographic models of neural pathways and molecular structures. "If we can refine the stabilized Nexus compound," she mused, manipulating a complex molecule with her hands, We might be able to enhance cognitive abilities without the risk of uncontrolled transformation. As she worked, she felt a familiar presence behind her. Without turning, she knew it was Nathan. Their shared experience had created a connection that transcended normal perception. "How's the research going?" Nathan asked, stepping into the lab. Phoebe turned to face him, a smile playing on her lips. "It's fascinating. The possibilities are endless. But what about you? How are you adjusting to your new interface?" Nathan's eyes glowed softly as he accessed the station systems. "It's like nothing I've ever experienced. I can feel the pulse of Haven's Point, every system, every corridor. It's exhilarating and terrifying at the same time." As they talked, their hands brushed against each other, and a spark of energy passed between them. They both felt it, a deepening of their connection, a shared understanding that went beyond words. Outside the lab's windows, the vastness of space stretched out before them. Haven's Point hung suspended among the stars, a beacon of innovation and interspecies cooperation. As Nathan and Phoebe stood together, gazing out at the cosmic tapestry, they knew that their journey was just getting started. The integration of precursor technology, the advancements in Nexus research, and their own evolving abilities were just the beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, pushing the boundaries of what was possible and shaping the future of their home among the stars. As Nathan and Phoebe stood together, gazing out at the cosmic tapestry, a sudden flurry of activity erupted behind them. Alarms blared throughout the station, and the holographic displays in the lab flickered to life with urgent messages. "Nathan, we need you in the control room immediately," Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. Long-range sensors had detected something unusual. Nathan's eyes glowed as he interfaced with the station systems. "I'm on my way," he responded, his voice tinged with concern. He turned to Phoebe. "You should come too. We might need your expertise." They rushed through the corridors, passing crew members hurrying to their stations. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. Haven's Point had faced threats before, and its inhabitants were prepared. In the control room, Captain Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, her face illuminated by the pulsing red warning signals. "Our sensors have picked up an approaching fleet," she said as Nathan and Phoebe entered. "Origin unknown, but the energy signatures are complex." Nathan stepped forward, his consciousness expanding to merge with the station's sensors. His eyes widened as the data flowed through him. "It's a mix of technologies," he reported. "There are elements similar to precursor design, but also Void Hunter energy signatures." Phoebe moved to a nearby console, her enhanced senses allowing her to process the incoming data at an accelerated rate. "The fleet's composition is unlike anything we've encountered before. It's as if they've merged different technological paradigms." Captain Rodriguez nodded grimly. "I've called an emergency meeting of the Interspecies Council. We need to decide how to respond to this potential threat." As the council members filed into the room, Nathan focused his abilities on the station's long-range communication systems. "I'm going to attempt contact," he announced, his voice echoing both audibly and through the station's neural network. Minutes ticked by as Nathan sent out hails on various frequencies and protocols. The tension in the room grew with each failed attempt. Suddenly, a burst of energy surged through the communication array, causing Nathan to flinch. "We've got a response," he said, his voice tight with concentration. A holographic image flickered to life in the center of the room, revealing a being unlike any they had seen before. Its form seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy, with skin that shimmered with patterns reminiscent of Nexus. "Greetings, Haven's Point." The being's voice resonated through the room. "I am Zorn, leader of the Nexus Seekers. We come in search of knowledge and alliance." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "I am Captain Rodriguez of Haven's Point. What is the nature of your visit, and why do your ships carry Void Hunter energy signatures?" Zorn's form rippled, as if in acknowledgement. We are a nomadic civilization dedicated to harnessing the power of Nexus for evolutionary advancement. We've been tracking Void Hunter activity across the galaxy, and our sensors led us to your station. We believe your research into pleasure technology and Nexus manipulation may hold the key to permanently countering the Void Hunter threat. The council members exchanged glances, a mix of intrigue and apprehension on their faces. Lyra, the Ascendancy representative, spoke up. Your goals align with our own, but we must be cautious. The safety of Haven's Point is our primary concern. Zorn nodded, his form shimmering. We understand your caution. We request permission to send a small delegation to your station to discuss a potential alliance and exchange of knowledge. As the council debated the risks and benefits, Phoebe leaned in close to Nathan. If they found a way to stabilize Nexus energy within their bodies, it could revolutionize our research, she whispered, her eyes bright with excitement. After intense discussion, the council reached a decision. Captain Rodriguez turned back to the holographic image of Zorn. We will permit a small delegation to board Haven's Point under strict security protocols. Prepare to receive docking instructions. As Zorn's image faded, the control room burst into action. Captain Rodriguez began issuing orders, her voice sharp and clear. I want security teams at every checkpoint. Dr. Lasara, prepare the medical bay for potential containment scenarios. Nathan, I need you to oversee our defense systems in case this is an elaborate trap. Phoebe stepped forward, her mind already racing with possibilities. I'll lead the team preparing for their arrival. We'll develop non-invasive scans to assess their physiology and energy signatures. If they truly have mastered Nexus integration, the data could be invaluable. As the station prepared for the Nexus Seeker's arrival, Nathan interfaced with Haven's Point's defense grid, fine-tuning the shields and weapon systems. He could feel the hum of energy coursing through the station, a mix of anticipation and wariness. Hours later, a sleek shuttle emerged from the Nexus Seeker's fleet, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly light. As it approached the docking bay, Nathan and Captain Rodriguez stood ready, flanked by a team of security officers and precursor warriors. The shuttle's doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air, revealing 3 figures. Zorn stepped out first, his presence even more striking in person. Behind him came 2 female assistants, Lyra and Vex, their forms equally mesmerizing. Welcome to Haven's Point, Captain Rodriguez said, her voice firm but not unwelcoming. We have much to discuss. As the delegation moved through the station, Phoebe conducted her scans, her enhanced senses picking up on subtle energy fluctuations. Fascinating, she murmured, studying the readouts. Their bodies contain incredibly high concentrations of stabilized Nexus. It's unlike anything we've seen before. The group made their way to a specially prepared conference room where members of the Interspecies Council waited. As they settled in, Zorn's eyes swept across the assembled group, lingering on Nathan and Phoebe. Your station has already achieved much in the field of Nexus manipulation, Zorn said, his voice carrying a hint of admiration. But the threat we face is greater than you know. The Void Hunters are evolving, becoming more organized. We believe that by combining our knowledge, we can create a defense that will protect not just Haven's Point, but countless worlds across the galaxy. As Zorn spoke, sharing the Nexus Seeker's experiences and knowledge, the atmosphere in the room shifted from cautious to excited. The possibilities presented by this unexpected alliance seemed limitless. Suddenly, a piercing alarm cut through the air, causing everyone to freeze. Nathan's eyes glowed as he accessed the station systems. His face paled as he processed the information flooding his mind. We have multiple contacts, he announced, his voice tight with urgency. A massive surge of Void Hunter energy signatures, approaching fast. It's an armada. Zorn's form rippled with what could only be described as resigned recognition. "They've found us," he said gravely. "The Void Hunters have been pursuing us across star systems. We had hoped to reach you before they caught up, but it seems our time has run out." Captain Rodriguez was already in motion, barking orders into her communicator. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." As Haven's Point erupted into frenzied preparation, Nathan turned to Phoebe, his eyes gleaming with dedication. "We need to implement those shield upgrades now. And your Nexus stabilization research, if we can weaponize it." Phoebe nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "I'll get my team on it immediately. If we can create a field of stabilized Nexus energy, it might disrupt the Void Hunter's ability to maintain cohesion." As they rushed from the room, Zorn called out, "We offer our fleet and our abilities to aid in your defense. Together, we might stand a chance against what's coming." The station hummed with activity as crew members and visitors alike prepared for the impending assault. In the midst of the chaos, Nathan interfaced with Haven's Point's core systems, his consciousness expanding to encompass every aspect of the station's defenses. Phoebe worked feverishly in her lab, surrounded by holographic models and pulsing energy fields. "We're close," she muttered, manipulating a complex molecular structure with her hands. "Just a few more adjustments." Outside, in the vast expanse of space, the first wave of the Void Hunter Armada appeared, their dark forms blotting out the stars. Haven's Point shields flickered to life, reinforced by the combined technologies of humans, precursors, and Nexus seekers. As the defenders of Haven's Point braced for impact, the air crackled with tension and possibility. The fate of the station, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The true test of their advancements, alliances, and commitment was about to begin as the Void Hunter Armada bore down on Haven's Point. The station's defenses roared to life, a symphony of advanced technology and desperate drive. Nathan, his consciousness fully merged with the station's systems, felt every circuit and conduit as if they were extensions of his own body. He coordinated the deployment of Phoebe's prototype Nexus field generators with machine-like precision, activating Nexus field in 3, 2, 1. A shimmering bubble of stabilized Nexus energy enveloped Haven's Point, its iridescent surface rippling like the surface of a soap bubble. The Nexus Seekers' fleet took up defensive positions, their ships pulsing with energy that disrupted the approaching Void Hunters. Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the tension in the control room. "All weapon systems online. Target the largest concentrations and fire at will." The station's newly upgraded weapon systems unleashed a barrage of energy beams and projectiles, carving swaths through the encroaching armada. The first wave of Void Hunters collided with the Nexus field, many disintegrating upon contact. Their unstable energy forms couldn't withstand the stabilizing effect of the field. However, larger, more powerful Void Hunters pushed through, their forms flickering and distorting as they penetrated the outer defenses. Phoebe, her eyes fixed on the holographic displays, noticed the adaptation occurring in real time. "Nathan, the largest entities are adapting to the field," she called out, her fingers flying over the control panels. "I'm modifying the field generators to counteract." As Phoebe worked, Nathan detected a new threat. Breach attempt in Section 47B. Redirecting power to reinforce. The strain on the station's systems caused fluctuations in other critical functions. Alarms blared as life support in several sections began to fail. "Emergency evacuation of sectors 12 through 15, Nathan announced, his voice echoing through the station's communication systems. "All personnel report to designated safe zones immediately." Throughout the station, chaos erupted as crews rushed to combat the Void Hunter incursion. Precursor warriors, led by the fierce Zara, engaged in direct combat with the entities that managed to infiltrate. Their energy-based weapons dispersed the Void Hunters into harmless particles, but the sheer number of enemies threatened to overwhelm them. Suddenly, Zorn and his Nexus Seeker assistants revealed their hidden ability. Their forms began to merge, coalescing into a large, Nexus-infused energy being. This amalgamated entity moved through the station with startling speed, absorbing and neutralizing Void Hunters in its path. As the battle intensified, Nathan felt a strange sensation coursing through his body. His physical form began to flicker, phasing in and out of solidity. The massive amount of energy flowing through his interface with the station's systems was causing his hybrid nature to destabilize. Phoebe noticed the change immediately. "Nathan!" she cried out, rushing to his side. She placed her hands on his shoulders, focusing her enhanced abilities to create a stabilizing field around him. "Hold on, I've got you." Despite the chaos surrounding them, Nathan managed a weak smile. "Thanks," he said, his voice distorted. "We need to keep going. The Armada's pressing harder." As if in response to his words, a massive Void Hunter entity, composed of hundreds of merged individuals, broke through the outer defenses. It attached itself to Havens Point's main power core, siphoning energy directly from the station. "We're losing power fast," Captain Rodriguez reported, her face grim. "If we don't stop that thing, we're done for." Nathan's mind raced, considering and discarding options at lightning speed. Suddenly, an idea formed, desperate, dangerous, but possibly their only chance. "The wormhole generator," he said. "We can use it to create a localized space-time distortion around the giant Void Hunter." The risk was enormous. Such a distortion could potentially tear Havens Point apart. But with no other options available, the Interspecies Council reluctantly approved the plan. Phoebe sprinted to the wormhole generator control room, her enhanced physiology allowing her to move at incredible speeds. "I'm adapting the generator now," she reported over the comms. "Nathan, I need you to target the anomaly precisely." As the generator powered up, the strain on Havens Point's infrastructure reached critical levels. Hull breaches occurred in multiple sections, and artificial gravity began to fail throughout the station. The air filled with the screech of tearing metal and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. "Wormhole generator at full power," Phoebe announced. "Initiating in 3, 2, 1. A swirling vortex of energy erupted around the giant Void Hunter. The entity's form distorted, stretched, and finally tore apart, its component parts scattered across space-time. But the distortion began to grow out of control, threatening to engulf the entire station. Nathan knew what he had to do. Without hesitation, he physically interfaced with the wormhole generator, using his hybrid nature to stabilize the anomaly. The strain on his body was immense, causing his form to fluctuate wildly between physical and energy states. Phoebe saw what was happening and rushed to Nathan's aid. Using her knowledge of Nexus energy, she created a stabilizing field around Nathan and the generator. Together, they fought to contain the distortion and gradually close the wormhole. As the space-time anomaly collapsed, a massive shockwave of Nexus energy erupted from the generator. This wave washed over Havens Point and the surrounding space, temporarily disrupting all energy-based entities. The remaining Void Hunters dissipated, unable to maintain cohesion in the face of this energy surge. The battle ended as suddenly as it had begun. Havens Point hung in space, severely damaged but victorious. Nathan collapsed, his hybrid form barely holding together after the ordeal. Phoebe caught him as he fell, cradling his flickering body in her arms. "Medical team to the control room, now," she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. As the station's crew began to assess the damage and tend to the wounded, Phoebe held Nathan close, her enhanced senses monitoring his unstable vital signs. The immediate threat had passed, but the challenges facing Havens Point were nowhere near the end. As emergency crews rushed to repair hull breaches and restore critical systems, the station's inhabitants faced an uncertain future. The battle against the Void Hunters had changed everything, and the full consequences of their victory were yet to be understood. Revealed, as the dust settled and the immediate crisis passed, the true extent of the damage became apparent. Nathan lay motionless in the control room, his form flickering between solid and energy states. Phoebe cradled him, her enhanced senses picking up the erratic fluctuations in his hybrid physiology. The medical team arrived moments later, led by Dr. Lasara, a tall, slender alien with iridescent skin and 4 dexterous arms. "We need to get him to the medical bay immediately," Dr. Lasara said, her voice calm but urgent. "His hybrid form is highly unstable." As they rushed Nathan to the corridors of Havens Point, the station groaned and shuddered around them. Emergency crews worked feverishly to seal hull breaches and restore critical systems. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burnt circuitry and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. In the medical bay, Dr. Lasara and her team surrounded Nathan, their movements precise and coordinated as they worked to stabilize his condition. Phoebe stood nearby, her hands outstretched, projecting a stabilizing nexus field around Nathan's bed. "His molecular structure is in flux," Dr. Lasara reported, her eyes fixed on the holographic readouts hovering above Nathan. "We need to create a containment field to prevent further degradation." Days turned into a week as Nathan's condition remained critical. Phoebe refused to leave his side, using her enhanced abilities to maintain the stabilizing field. Her own energy reserves were nearly depleted, but she pushed on, drawing strength from the Nexus itself. Outside the medical bay, Havens Point buzzed with activity. The Nexus seekers and precursor allies brought in specialized equipment, their advanced technology proving invaluable in the repair efforts. Captain Rodriguez coordinated the teams from the makeshift command center, her voice hoarse from issuing constant orders. "We need those life support systems back online in sectors 7 through 12, she barked into her communicator. "And get me an update on the shield generators." As the station slowly regained its footing, reports began to flood in from all sections. Crew members and residents alike were experiencing strange phenomena, enhanced strength, heightened senses, and in some cases, the ability to manipulate energy fields. Dr. Lasara presented her findings to the hastily assembled Interspecies Council. "The Nexus energy wave that ended the battle has triggered latent genetic potential in many species," she explained, gesturing to the data streaming across the room's holographic displays. "We're seeing widespread enhancement across the station's population." The council chamber erupted into heated debate. Lyra, the Ascendancy representative, leaned forward, her luminescent eyes intense. "We must establish a new department to study and manage these emerging abilities," she proposed. "The potential benefits and risks are too great to ignore." As the council deliberated, Nathan's condition finally stabilized. His eyes fluttered open, focusing on Phoebe's worried face. His body now exhibited a permanent shimmering effect, a visible manifestation of his hybrid nature. "Welcome back," Phoebe whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As she embraced him, a surge of Nexus energy pulsed through the room, temporarily affecting nearby electronic systems. Nathan's recovery marked a turning point for Havens Point. With his unique understanding of both technology and Nexus energy, he immediately began work on upgrading the station's systems to accommodate the new reality of enhanced inhabitants. "We need to redesign the neural interfaces," Nathan explained to Captain Rodriguez, his fingers dancing over a holographic control panel. "With these modifications, our enhanced crew members can interact more efficiently with the station's technology." Phoebe, meanwhile, focused her efforts on understanding and controlling the Nexus enhancement process. In her lab, she developed a series of treatments to help individuals struggling with their new abilities. "Hold still," she instructed a young engineer whose hands kept phasing through solid objects. "This stabilizing field should help you maintain control." As word of Havens Point's transformation spread, the station became a magnet for curiosity and ambition. Diplomatic envoys from across the galaxy arrived, eager to establish relations and gain access to the station's advanced technology. The influx of visitors strained Havens Point's resources, forcing the council to implement strict immigration policies. A quarantine protocol was established for all new arrivals, designed to prevent potential security threats and manage the spread of Nexus enhancement. Zorn, the Nexus Seeker leader, proposed an ambitious expansion plan to the council. We need additional modules to accommodate our growing population and increase research activities, he argued, his energy form pulsing with excitement. As construction began on the new sectors, Nathan's attention was drawn to the long-range sensor data. Unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system caught his eye, consistent with a larger, more organized group of Void Hunters. "We need to prepare," Nathan told the council, his expression grave. "This could be the vanguard of a more significant threat." In response, the council authorized the development of a new defense initiative. Nathan and Phoebe led a team in creating a network of Nexus-powered satellites around Havens Point, designed to generate a large-scale stabilization field. As the satellite network neared completion, an unexpected complication arose. Small, localized temporal anomalies began appearing throughout the station, causing objects and individuals to briefly phase in and out of sync with normal time. Dr. Lasara's team worked tirelessly to understand and contain these anomalies. "The temporal effects are linked to the enhanced abilities of our inhabitants," she reported. "It's creating a feedback loop that amplifies the Nexus field's impact on space-time." Nathan saw an opportunity in this challenge. "We could harness these temporal anomalies as a defensive measure," he proposed to the council. "By modifying the satellite network, we could create controlled temporal disruptions to trap or disperse enemy forces before they can organize an attack." As preparations for this new defense strategy got underway, Phoebe made a breakthrough in her Nexus research. She developed a method to temporarily transfer consciousness between individuals using the station's enhanced neural interfaces. "Imagine the possibilities for training and information sharing," she explained to Nathan, her eyes bright with excitement. "We could even use it for rescue operations in dangerous situations." With Havens Point on the brink of testing its new temporal defense system, Nathan and Phoebe stood together in the control room, their bond strengthened by shared experiences and enhanced abilities. The station hummed with energy and purpose, its inhabitants united in their purpose to protect their home and push the boundaries of Nexus technology. As they initiated the final sequence for the defense system test, a warning klaxon blared through the station. Nathan's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. His fingers flew across the holographic interface, bringing up detailed sensor readings. "We've got incoming," Nathan announced, his voice taut with tension. "It's the Void Hunter Armada we detected earlier. They're approaching fast." Phoebe's eyes widened as she processed the information. "How long do we have?" "Minutes at most," Nathan replied, already initiating the station's defensive protocols. "We need to activate the temple defense system now." Alarms blared throughout Havens Point as the station's inhabitants rushed to their assigned positions. Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed over the intercom, steady and commanding. "All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Nathan and Phoebe exchanged a determined look before sprinting towards the newly constructed Nexus control hub. As they ran, the station's corridors bustled with activity. Enhanced security teams moved with superhuman speed, their bodies glowing faintly with Nexus energy. The control hub doors slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with pulsing holographic displays and humming machinery. At its center stood a raised platform surrounded by a web of glowing energy conduits. "Systems online," Nathan reported as he interfaced directly with the station's neural network. His body shimmered, partially phasing into the energy field around him, initiating satellite network activation. Phoebe took her position at an adjacent console, her fingers dancing across the controls. Temporal field generators charging. 80%, 90%. Outside the station, the satellite network sprang to life. A shimmering field of temporal disruptions bloomed around Haven's Point, creating a barrier of twisted space-time. The Void Hunter Armada entered visual range, a vast swarm of writhing energy forms that blotted out the stars. As they hit the temporal field, chaos erupted. Hundreds of Void Hunters became trapped in localized time loops, their forms stretching and compressing in mind-bending ways. Others simply winked out of existence, phased out of normal space-time. "It's working," Phoebe exclaimed, her eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. But her elation was short-lived. "Wait. Nathan, look at this." Nathan's brow furrowed as he processed the incoming data. A significant portion of the Void Hunter force was adapting to the temporal field, pushing through with alarming speed. "They're learning," he muttered, his hybrid mind racing to predict their movements. Adjusting field parameters now. Nathan's consciousness expanded, merging with the station systems. He directed the temporal field like a conductor leading an orchestra, creating intricate patterns of disruption that anticipated the Void Hunter's movements. Phoebe coordinated with the security teams, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to process and relay information at superhuman speeds. Zeta Team, temporal anomaly forming in Sector 12. Kappa Team, reinforce the shield generators in Section 8. As the battle intensified, Nathan noticed a pattern emerging in the Void Hunters' attack. Their movements were too coordinated, too precise to be random. "There's a central intelligence guiding them," he realized aloud. "Something we haven't encountered before." Focusing the station's long-range scanners, Nathan pinpointed the source, a massive Void Hunter entity at the center of the Armada. Its form pulsed with dark energy, dwarfing the other Void Hunters around it. Phoebe's eyes widened as she saw the scan results. "That thing is enormous. How can we possibly stop it?" A spark of inspiration hit her, born from her research into consciousness transfer. "Nathan, I have an idea. It's risky, but it might be our only chance." She quickly outlined her plan, using the neural interface system to project their enhanced consciousness directly into the Void Hunter Collective, disrupting it from within. Nathan's form flickered as he considered the proposal. "The danger is extreme. If we fail, our minds could be absorbed by the entity." "Do we have any other choice?" Phoebe asked, her gaze steady. With a nod, Nathan began the preparations, initiating neural interface protocols, charging Nexus conduits for long-range projection. As Haven's Point shuddered under the assault of the Void Hunters, Nathan and Phoebe took their positions on the central platform. Energy crackled around them as the neural interface engaged. "Remember," Phoebe said, reaching out to grasp Nathan's hand, "no matter what happens in there, we anchor each other. We're stronger together." Nathan squeezed her hand in response, initiating consciousness transfer in 3, 2, 1. Their bodies went limp, slumping to the platform as their minds hurtled across space. They plunged into the swirling vortex of the Void Hunter Collective, leaving behind the physical world and entering a realm of pure consciousness and energy. The mindscape that greeted them was a chaotic maelstrom of swirling energies and fragmented thoughts. Countless voices whispered and screamed, threatening to overwhelm their senses. Nathan and Phoebe struggled to maintain their individuality against the crushing force of the hive mind. Drawing strength from their emotional connection, they focused on each other. Their shared memories, the triumphs and challenges they had faced together on Haven's Point, formed a stable anchor in the chaos. As they navigated deeper into the collective, the truth behind the Void Hunters began to unfold. They weren't just mindless energy beings, but the remnants of countless civilizations that had sought to transcend physical form. In their quest for perfection, they had lost their individuality, merging into a vast, hungry consciousness. At the core of the collective, a familiar presence awaited them. Marcus, The former extremist leader now merged with the Central Void Hunter intelligence. His consciousness had expanded beyond recognition, twisted by the very power he had sought to control. "Welcome." Marcus's voice echoed through the mindscape, simultaneously singular and multiplicitous. "You've come to witness the salvation of all consciousness." Nathan and Phoebe reeled from the revelation, but they had no time to process it fully. The battle for Haven's Point and the future of consciousness itself had entered its most crucial phase.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.